There is a way to break free from those illusions, from all ignorance, and from all the forces and structures that make us forget ourselves. It is a technology that allows you to remember who you truly are from the very beginning. For 6 years I was completely immersed in the tradition. This tradition is more than 20,000 years old. There is a constant uninterrupted flow of information saying that this is secret, closed off, and cannot be talked about. And on the one hand, those who intend to keep you in ignorance, in foolishness, in passions, in debauchery, in anything unbalanced, and people who have learned something, mastered something, reached something, and so they use this to show off, to display a part of it, a small part of the total knowledge. A huge number of structures and systems came down on me, because this information, this knowledge, and these specific practices make a person truly free. And when you are someone's slave, the master doesn't want you to interfere with this process in any way. Reality is not against it, the forces are not against it, the systems are against it, the masters of people are against it. Look around you, this is all happening. 24/7.
Hello, my name is Artem Karitonov, and today we are going to have a conversation with a person who spent more than 6 years living in a temple, studying in one of the most secretive and closed traditions of the East. Today we will explore a deep discussion about God, about life after death, about why reincarnation does not exist, how we were misled concerning the nature of chakras, what separates the elites, the global elites, from the rest of the ordinary people, and also some other hidden secrets and mysteries of our reality and energy. Anton Mikhailov. Hello, Anton.
Hello, Arthur.
You originally started talking about how for countless thousands of years it remained shrouded in secrecy. No one dared to reveal these practices for a long time. How did that happen? First of all, how did you come to the place where you received this knowledge, and how did it happen that you became the person who took this knowledge and brought it to the world?
To understand this, we'll have to start from the very beginning. And that beginning was laid way back in my early childhood, when I was first raised in the strict tradition of the Soviet Union. And there, in fact, there was a complete and total rejection of any spirituality, God, esotericism, or anything at all, including magic and witchcraft. None of that existed, at least not in my family. And suddenly at some point the union collapsed, and all sorts of things started appearing on TV screens. All kinds of Chumaks, Kashpirovskis, Yuri Longa, Juna, and so on. My grandmothers and grandfathers started charging water and started reading books by these authors. And then I started wondering, how did it happen that I lived to this day and absolutely no one had ever told me about this? Because now it seems like it's just taken for granted. It's become something self-evident. And somewhere around my childhood years, I started to have doubts that adults were telling me everything about this world. So it became clear to me that either they don't know something or they're hiding something, and I needed to find out what it was. As time passed by, school continued, and esoteric shops started to appear, while online forums began to pop up. There was now a real opportunity to come into contact with these things without going through other people. And then more books appeared. I started reading those books, and I read almost everything I could possibly get my hands on then. And in one of the books, which was actually called Red Magic, and I didn't even buy it in a store, a friend came back from Novosibirsk and brought this book with him. To this day, I don't understand how he ended up with that book in his hands. I happened to borrow it to read, and it contained different practices, rituals, and all the things that exist in the magical world. And there was one practice for separating from the physical body. Back then, there weren't terms like astral projection or lucid dreaming yet. All of that was just beginning to emerge. There, it was called separation from your own body. I thought, that's cool. Wait, is that even possible? Does that really happen? And you don't have to die to experience it? I have to try it. I need to study this. And there was a practice, and it was actually a really fun one. You had to create a sensation of free fall for yourself. Well, the simplest way was to stand at the level of the sofa, so there would be a big angle for the fall, and just fall backward. And you had to do this several times before going to bed, so that those few milliseconds of falling would accumulate in you. I had this old springy sofa. It had these springs, and I also put all the pillows I could find on it, so basically it was soft. And I started falling like that 5 or 6 times before bed. And I understood what I was doing. I mean, I knew why I was doing it. The goal was to disconnect from the physical, even though I didn't believe in it. I didn't know whether it was true or false, because obviously all those witchcraft spells that were also in that book, I could see that they didn't work. I mean, I'm mumbling something and nothing happens. And so a day goes by, 2, 3, 4, a week passes. With these backward falls of mine, I would end up lying down, getting into bed. I would slowly start to drift off to sleep. Suddenly, I get a powerful ringing in my ears. A flash goes off like a light, even though my eyes are closed. It's like a light bulb turned on, shining directly in my face. I kind of jerked and I felt like I was falling. And suddenly my body is right in the focus of my attention. I'm like, no way. I look to the left, furniture, my bed, the wallpaper, everything's there. I'm looking at all of it. It's this kind of twilight, but a twilight that gives off a gentle glow. So it's not like a light bulb is on and spreading light. It's as if every object, every item is glowing just a little bit on its own. I immediately noticed and thought, this is for sure. Not with my eyes, because eyes see things differently. So I start looking around, just looking around like that. The windows, the walls, the ceiling. And then I lose my focus, start to panic a bit, and suddenly I'm thrown back into my body. I just jerk up on the bed like my body contracts on its own. My heart is pounding, I'm breaking out in a sweat, and in my head, immediately, everything is a complete mess inside my head. I'm torn between wanting to run to my parents and tell them, you lied to me, the world isn't at all like you explained it to me. And thinking, who would believe me? What would anyone even say to that? Or maybe I should just try to calm down, I think, okay. I just experienced something that no one ever told me about. I experienced something I even doubted myself. It became obvious to me that the world isn't like that. I was about 12 years old when I made the decision that I wouldn't. I just wouldn't spend my life living like everyone else. Because people who live similarly to each other, they're obviously moving, maybe this will sound a bit blunt or harsh, but they're moving toward the grave. And that's a fact. And whatever you do here, whatever you get involved in, whatever you put your energy into, whatever you invest your efforts in, no matter how much money you make here, you will die. You will lose all of it. None of it will help you in any way. But in the world of esotericism, there was knowledge, there was information that, well, supposedly you might not die, you might somehow go on and do something else there. So I'm experiencing this event, it keeps repeating, meaning I didn't even need to do any practices anymore, it just repeats. At first it really scared me, because when it happened for the first time, it was unexpected. When you just close your eyes and you start getting pulled there, again there's this powerful noise, buzzing, hissing in your ears, again those flashes of light, you're being dragged somewhere, and then everything just shuts off and then turns back on again. So it's like click, click, your perception just switches back and forth like that. And again, it's either my room or something completely unrecognizable or something familiar, but it's not my room. Sometimes it happened that I'd go to bed, leave my body, start perceiving things, and it would be daytime outside, the bed would be empty. There were events that were inexplicable. Sometimes I would encounter some beings there that would have an effect on me. Again, who are they? What are they? I searched in literature, and the only book that I read Monroe's books. By the way, at that time, those books were very pleasant for me. Robert Monroe. I listened to Hemisync. But the books that were the most suitable, the most similar to what I experienced and felt, were the books by Carlos Castaneda. In it, I would read and think, yes, I had that, yes, I saw that, yes, I experienced that, yes, I think this is even the only book where this Guvusha was described. It wouldn't leave me alone. I couldn't find this information. Nowhere did it say that this hum exists, but it does exist. I was immersing myself more and more into this world, esotericism, searching for all sorts of groups, schools, teachers, and at some point I came to the conclusion that it was impossible to find this in Russia. Moscow, the Moscow region, the Ural Mountains, and several other regions. I searched, I traveled. I started looking into where I needed to go next. And at that time, the most mysterious place was India. Yes, there. Then China appeared, Shaolin, all of that. But at that time, this whole movement was just beginning. And in India, there were a vast and diverse array of saints and gurus, the famous Sai Baba, the profound Ramana Maharshi, and many others such as Sri Aurobindo, and others like the spiritual mother Amma. There's also a very interesting story with her later on. Later on, something happened, and I decided that I needed to somehow get there. At that point, I was already an adult. I was working, actually had a pretty good job and had saved up some money. I made the decision, I need to go abroad, I need to go to another country and look for knowledge there. Because here it seemed like everything was already clear, everything was already known. And that didn't satisfy me because I couldn't find answers to all my questions, to the things I was facing. I met a girl. At that time, she was also on the same wavelength. She also wanted to go somewhere. She had just come back from India. Yes, she had just returned from India and was telling me all these magical stories. I wanted that too. I wanted to experience that ashram. I wanted to meet that saint. I wanted to be where everyone was practicing and doing something. And in the end, we went and traveled around India for half a year. In between, she would tell me that she also had some kind of teacher, but he would occasionally just come to Moscow for a while and then leave, disappear somewhere into the ether, and she didn't know where he was. So we ended up traveling all over India. I witnessed all of this up close. I saw it with my very own eyes. I looked at all these so-called saints, and I was profoundly and deeply disappointed, because I went there in search of magic, of miracles. But in reality, what I observed was ordinary people simply gathering around there. These so-called saints, what are they really like? What is their psychology? What are they striving for? And when do they try to break the rules there? In the ashram, when they try to do the very same things they used to do back in Moscow, in the city. So you don't actually need to go to India for that. They were doing the practices, but you're not actually practicing. You just sit there and wait for it to be over. Those sleepy faces at 6 in the morning, like, why am I even up this early? So I just kept on asking myself over and over, what are you doing here? No, why did you even come at all? If you truly want to gain a deeper understanding of your own nature, and if you want to develop certain skills, why are you doing things that don't lead you there? You're just trying to live your regular daily life, just in another country. Yeah, not everyone was like that, but most were. So I make a decision and say, listen, let's keep looking. No, India isn't right for me. Something's off here. This was the popular India, the place where everyone went, especially Sai Baba. Back then, he was really at the top. So naturally, I looked at all of that and realized, no, there's no knowledge there. No one trains you there. No one educates you there. It's just a crowd of people praying to a bull-like man. Let's go. In my perception, he was basically just like everyone else. Yes, he had a strong presence. Sure, he did show and demonstrate some things, but I couldn't do any of that myself. And to go up and say, listen, I want to do that too. Can you teach me something, show me, explain so I can do it myself? There was nothing like that there, meaning it was more like someone would come out and show off, like, look what I can do. And can you pray for me? And at the Amma event, when I was there, she hugged everyone, just kept hugging. Then we stayed there on the stage after the Indians left, and I went up to the organizer and asked, so what happens next? He says, well, yeah, you can just sit down and pray for her. And I'm like, really? I asked, is that all? He says, well, she'll keep performing elsewhere. You can follow her if you want. I'm like, thanks. I think I'll look for someone who will actually train me, rather than just suggest I pray for them. Coming into contact with all this, every time I realized that no one was going to train me. These are not really the places where you will actually gain your education. These are the places where you just spend time for fun, or do your own personal side projects, just like what most people ended up doing. So what happens next? It's disappointment all over again. This isn't it, this isn't right. Let's move on. We traveled all around Asia, visiting many other cities. We went to Thailand, saw the temples, experienced Buddhism, and took in the whole scene there. In the end, I returned to Moscow. I didn't know what to do next. Once again, I needed to work, somehow try again, try to find someone or something. I might say, listen, maybe we should go to those pulse meetings, you know, the guy who was telling those stories, remember? Yeah, I remember, but he's kind of an outcast. Let's go together. Sure, let's go and check it out. He would come right to the heart of downtown Moscow. Rent a room in a regular school, just an ordinary local middle school. We were sitting there at the desks and then he came in. A sturdy little man, stocky with a beard. I looked at him and thought, well, okay. And he starts talking about energy and people are just sitting there like this. So what are we supposed to do? She says, well, listen, what's happening in your body? I'm like, okay, fine. I start, just copying everyone else. Direct your attention, observe, plus improve and feel. Well, some flows, some energies. I didn't know about that, but now I do. Yeah, oh, and the project. I heard about it. What is it? Where is it? I don't know. So he starts talking to me, explaining, answering my questions, and as he answers my questions, the first thing that really stuck in my mind was that he uses Castaneda's terminology. In other words, he uses the terminology from the book, basically, and applies it. Well, that made sense to me, so I immediately started to understand what he was explaining to me. And the second thing is that he answers my questions instantly, without even thinking, because of his experience. He's been through it too. With each of these meetings, we practiced and discovered things within ourselves, finding something new. I learned about aspects of my own field I hadn't even suspected existed. We studied the energy inside the body, but we also studied the energy on the surface, outside the body, the structure that forms an egg around us, a kind of glowing energy field egg. He told us about and showed us the structure that extends beyond this egg, out to 100 meters, 200 meters, even 1,000 kilometers. In our practices and meditations, we would extend our awareness all the way to the orbit of the moon. And I could feel my centers there, they were shining. This person demonstrated such practices and shared knowledge that had never been described in any book at all. I had read through them all, a considerable number of those books, in fact, and I was able to do all of it. That is, I could see it all, I could perceive it all. So he would come, and this would go on for a while, probably not 6, 5, maybe 6 days, and that was it. Then he would leave. I attended for 4 years. At the same time, of course, there was work, studies, something or other, always something going on. So all of this was always happening in parallel. There was a girl. We got together and started living together. For 4 years he would come periodically, we practiced, I enjoyed it, but nothing more than that. And then again, I realized that I was just living like an ordinary person. Yes, there are some practices, yes, they're great, yes, the guy knows his stuff, yes, he understands things, but what about me? I just live like everyone else. And then we made another monumental decision to move far away into the mountains, where we would build a custom house, finally settle down, and begin a brand new chapter of our lives together. Live and practice, that is, build your life so that you have plenty of time to practice, right from morning until evening.
Mountains where?
Altai. It was Altai. At first we wanted to do all this in the Urals, but it didn't work out in the Urals. There were constant problems with land registration when purchasing and when trying to buy a plot of land. Whatever failed here, it wasn't being pushed through. We thought, let's go further. Why care about the Urals? Let's go further to the next mountains and the ones after. Altai, Uymonskaya Valley, Altai Republic, foothills of Beluga Mountain. Mount Beluga is considered one of the most powerful places in Russia. It suits us, it suits us. And we buy land there, build a house and start living. We begin to live in the mountains from the position that now I will practice. I start to get interested in electronics there. I enjoy reading Nikola Tesla's diaries. Little by little, what he did with spark gaps, what he did with mechanical devices, I start doing with modern components. These are transistors controlled by all sorts of microchips. And what used to take up half a room for him, now all fits in the palm of your hand. In other words, digital control. The people I interacted with, you start getting into it as well. Someone gave me an oscilloscope, I remember. At first it was an old one, barely working. And then a guy came to visit. We talked about this and that, and then he said, listen, I want to help you. How can I help you? I said, listen, what I really need is a modern oscilloscope. What is this thing anyway? I said, well, you see, there's electricity, and this device lets you actually see that electricity. And I said, I can't see it, so I don't understand what's going on there. I wish I could see it. He said, all right, no problem. And he gave me a brand new, absolutely new oscilloscope, which really allowed me to make the devices I was working on. My phobia, in a way, helped me distance myself a bit from your problems. There were a lot of problems back then, meaning there was no idea that living in the mountains in a little house, that it's constant meditation, that you're basically sitting in the palm of God's hand. Well, in reality, that's not the case. In reality, it's sudden changes in the weather. It's the road that constantly gets snowed in. It's the equipment in the house that keeps breaking down. Something rusted, something stopped working. A pipe froze somewhere, the stove went out, the chimney got clogged, the firewood got damp, it rained at the wrong time, or it snowed at the wrong time, right in the middle of summer. Life there, everyday life, is multiplied by 30 compared to living in the city. I lived in the city my whole life. It wasn't anything like that. And we really miscalculated. And I listened, and that's how I imagined everything. It all seemed so insignificant, just nonsense, and then I found out that Skype broadcast had appeared. That's when Skype came out. Broadcasts started appearing from that very guy with whom we had been studying for 4 years, and we started tuning into those broadcasts. We'd sit, listen to these broadcasts, practice, and I started to remember, I have a channel, that's right. I used to look at those centers. They were there, stretching for thousands of kilometers, from the top to thousands of kilometers below. I started diving back into these complex processes and eventually made yet another life-changing decision, like, listen, I really want to study with him, because at that specific moment in time, I simply didn't know what the future held or how much this choice would matter. Well, who, from where to where, what, who is this person anyway? Just some guy who comes, shows something, and then disappears. Well, over time I found out that, as it turns out, he is a representative of an ancient tradition that he is called Ashan. That Ashan, well, what does that mean? What tradition is that? That the tradition he demonstrates is Vidya Shri, Vidya 2, and that he does not show the practices. Sri Vidya is about practical energy practices, about mantras, about rituals, about knowledge of yantras, about the Sri Yantra, and there are Shiva and Shakti. I realized, wait a minute, this is Hinduism, we've been there. I didn't see any of this there. No one told me about this there. Why did no one tell me about it? Why did the people who were well known to everyone never mention any of this at all? Why did I have to pray to Sai Baba when there is Adikali, there is Srila, Litadri, Purasundari, there is Shiva, there is Vishnu, there is Ganesha after all, and Brahman. These energies are manifested both in the universe and within me. Shiva exists as fullness, as wholeness, and as the original source, and as a ray of intention that permeates my body. So everything I saw there, I also saw within myself. It was reflected. And this idea that I am a fragment of the primordial became obvious to me because I am made of the same thing that I see in these deities. Let's call them that. Although I prefer to think of them as forces, simply forces manifested in reality. At that point, it just became obvious that I couldn't go on living and pretending I'm not a practitioner because everyday life was consuming me. I made the decision to become his student, and somehow we started getting closer, and it so happened that Ashan, together with his students, came to Altai, to Mount Beluga, to walk around, to see the place, to spend some time there. I took another look at how he behaves, what he says, what his students are like. How easily do they pay for things? All the hotels, horseback trips, they just pay for everything without a second thought. So I realized that these are successful people. And I start asking about this and that. He goes, well, you see, I only ever do these specific practices with my own students, and unfortunately, you're not my student yet. And I'm just sitting there like, damn, I really want to do these practices too. And it was at that exact moment when I started turning to him. Not just as some random guy showing a practice, but as a true mentor. To the bearer of knowledge about Sri Vidya, I kept running into this wall. You're not a student, and that's it. That fired me up. It gave me even stronger motivation, and at some point, a lot more was happening there. To go into detail now would take a lot of time. It would take too long. So here's another key moment. Everyday life had consumed us so much that my girlfriend had already left while I stayed. It wasn't quite as simple as just locking up and leaving like in Moscow. There you can just lock your apartment and go to another country. But there it doesn't work like that. You leave. And then what? Who? Where? They'll take everything apart, piece by piece, brick by brick. I can't leave. I need to keep an eye on the house. I'm already desperately trying to immerse myself in tradition, even though I don't really understand what it is yet. And I call Ashan just already in a desperate state. I'm absolutely determined to do it, but I don't understand how. I don't know what to do. And at that moment, it was the very first time that I heard him say, well, he said, okay, I will perform a traditional puja ceremony. I'll see what reality tells you, exactly what is actually happening right now in the world, in the global currents. And I asked, so what is it that I really need to do? He says, I'm not going to give you anything. Well, all right. I sat up all night, worrying about what reality would tell me, what a puja is. I had no idea what a puja even was. And I needed to leave, but I couldn't because there was no one to look after things. No one was planning to look after the little house, which was 7 kilometers from the nearest settlement. So basically, it was a complete dead end. And then in the morning, I get a message. He says that reality is on your side. I'm like, well, cool, but what should I do? What now? What should I do? So during the day, I suddenly get this message on VKontakte, on my personal VK page from some random guy I don't know at all. He writes to me saying something like, well, hey, we are from Moscow and we're looking to live out in Altai for a little while. And then he asks me, do you happen to have a house for rent around there? Take everything I have, that's all there is. Just come as soon as possible. We're already on our way. We'll be there in just a few days. So how much does it cost? I said, it doesn't cost anything, just so that everything is in order for me, so that no one takes anything from me. Enjoy the mountains. Have a good time. I left. And a few days later, this guy arrives with his brother. Well, there are also some people into esotericism, to meditate and all that. I ask, how much time do I have? He says, well, we're not really planning to leave anytime soon. Go wherever you need to go. We'll stay here for a while. I say, all right, live here as long as you want. I'll leave everything to them. The property, the house, the keys, I'll leave it all. Actually, this is the first time I've seen a bee, but here I really felt what it means to have reality on my side. I didn't analyze it. I didn't think it through. I didn't say, I need to make sure they are trustworthy first. I didn't think about anything at all. It's just an event that's starting to unfold, and I'm not resisting it in any way. I leave everything to them, pack up all my things and go wherever I'm going, and I'm going to the temple, to the house for practice, where Ashana is currently staying. I arrive and immediately say that my intention is simply to learn, so I have no more doubts, and I have no more second thoughts about it at all. And all I heard in response was something like, well, why the hell do I need you? Why did you come? Why? I say, well, I mean, you helped me yourself. He says, I didn't help you. It's just that at that moment I looked and reality was on your side. So I asked, and what about now? He says, well, now you're here. I don't understand. I try, the usual things like, give me some guarantees, but no, I've made up my mind. And it doesn't work. It just doesn't come together like that. So I pulled myself together again and thought, well, I'll practice. When are the practices? When does it start? But he resisted a little more, then said, fine, from this date the practices begin. Here's the student house, go there. So find yourself a room on the 3rd floor if there is one. And that's it. And from that moment, I wasn't a student, but I started studying there. But of course, it was different from what I witnessed in India, in those ashrams. It was nothing like what I saw with all those popular figures such as Sai Baba or Ramana Maharshi. In reality, it was just conditioning. It was simply training. We practiced martial arts, we practiced massage, we practiced Jyotish, we practiced Sanskrit, we practiced meditation, we practiced mantras, we practiced rituals. And there were people who had been studying with him for decades by the time I arrived. I realized that this was it. I had found what I was looking for. I felt at peace and stopped searching for anything else. I no longer strove, just absorbing everything. This went on for around 6 years. I would leave, come back, and leave again. Sometimes there were moments when the whole place was closed off. His teacher would come. They would do something there. His teacher would come, but the place would remain open. So there were different situations, but for those 6 years, I was completely immersed in the tradition. During that time, I managed to receive initiation. I was able to feel, to experience, to live through everything he sometimes talked about, like those tales of power. And when, after all that long time, he said, well, that's it, you can go on now. There's absolutely nothing more to teach you, that's all. Go ahead, apply it, use it. Come on, start moving forward on your own. Stop hanging around my neck. Well, of course, it was sad, it was upsetting, but I understood that it had to be done. Because if you spend your whole life in school or your whole life in college, what will become of you? An eternal student. I didn't want to be an eternal student. I always strove to find my own way, to master things myself, to be able to do things on my own. When I learned to see, when I learned to feel these energies, when I learned to perceive Shiva's energies on my own, when I came into contact with that process, which is called, when Kaliya Odakoli turned her attention to you, I experienced all of this, all of it happened. Through me, I was happy because these were not stories from him, not stories from his students. It was something I experienced myself, and all of this, when I just like that brought it out of the temple, I found myself one-on-one with reality, returned home. I was like, okay, I need to work, I need to do something, I need to somehow get back into daily life again. And I was completely spaced out because in the temple, the space is arranged in such a way that everything is aimed at maximizing the effectiveness of practice. But when you're in everyday, ordinary life, nothing is aimed at that. Everything is designed so that you forget yourself, close off, fade out, turn off your consciousness, and become completely immersed in illusion, in cartoons, in the hustle and bustle. A few days go by and it completely washes out of me, this spaced out state of mind, and I become just like everyone else. I strive to earn money. I remember that I used to be interested in electricity, that I know how it works, I know how current flows through wires. I post advertisements on Udo, saying that I can do professional electrical work, and that I can handle a wide range of specific tasks. Because while I was living in the house, I also practiced using all sorts of different tools. Working with wood, bending metal, welding, I learned how to weld. And I got hired right away, literally the same day I was taken on the job. To prepare a restaurant for opening, I installed outlets in the walls, connected equipment, installed fuses, motors, exhaust hoods, ventilation. I connected and set all of that up. And basically I was proficient in all of this. They saw that I was just bam, 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 getting everything done quickly. And it seemed like life was starting to get better. Then, as my finances started to improve, at first I had absolutely nothing. I just had no money at all. But as I started to have a bit more money, I thought, why not build a device and sell it? A small transistor Tesla coil. He made this huge one with spark gaps, but I made a small, compact one. I finished assembling the unit and listed it for sale on Avito. Eventually a guy showed up at my place and said to me, listen, I've been wondering if you could possibly build a custom device for me based on a video I saw. I said, well, I need to take a look at this video. Basically, why not? He shows me the video and I more or less understand it. What's happening in this video? What kind of equipment is it? What technology might be used there? It was a video about the transient process in inductance coils. When you read standard textbooks on the field of radio electronics, those transient processes are practically not described there. And because I was tinkering with all of this, meaning I was observing through the oscilloscope and experimenting, I saw these processes and they fascinated me. And these processes are actually quite similar to how blood works. There's a whole universe there that in fact isn't described in school and university physics, because school and university physics are just models. Models that are approximations of reality. But what was required of me were exactly those moments that no model can describe, because they're extremely chaotic, and I was assembling it for him. That is, it was just the transistor turning on and off. That is, as soon as the opening edge started, the closing edge would immediately begin. And this produced the desired effect, the effect that he needed. But he looked at all of this and said, all right. He said, there's another device, let me show it to you. And now he brings documentation, he brings patents. I look at all of this and say, well, I understand what's written here, but assembling it will take time. I go to work every day, so how am I supposed to do all this? He says, listen, I have a proposal for you. And he offered me a professional position at the research laboratory that is working on the development, these processes, the electrical processes in honey, in order to get a patent. So it was necessary to create this patent. And I leave. I just say, guys, I found a more interesting challenge. I began the detailed process of working on creating this patent. We thoroughly studied every single aspect of this project, and as a result, my overall level of professional knowledge and expertise significantly increased many times over. I even delved into quantum physics. It turned out that these transient processes are basically not studied by regular physics. Only quantum physics deals with these things. I dug around there, explored and studied these processes, and I became quite an experienced practitioner in electricity. At the same time, I could even feel this electricity, because by that point I had already developed extrasensory perception. Again, I wasn't just hanging around in that temple, I was training. That's right. And intuitively, by using this vision, by applying extrasensory perception, by using such a way of gaining knowledge as illumination, as insight, when you immerse yourself in a certain state, there is a space in these practices called the sixth gate. If we put it in simple terms, it's the Akashic records. In other words, it's a field structure where information is stored. We were taught how to make contact with this field structure, but it's not like you just, oh, now I'm going to find out everything. No, there's a whole technology to how you do it so that it actually works, not just imagining something for yourself. And I started applying all of this. It also became part of my practice, part of my work. And sometimes I would wake up in the morning, this is how it needs to be put together. I come in quickly. I just threw this together, bam, bam, bam. And by then I already had a bunch of boards, a bunch of ready-made circuits. You just connect everything together with alligator clips and it would turn on. It would work. It would show the desired effects. All of this would multiply together. The electrical contacts, the use of extrasensory abilities, how it all influences things, how it works, these transitional processes, how they stir up my energy, my field. In the end, the patent was completed, it was registered, and basically my work was finished. I started a YouTube channel and began uploading my own content there. These devices. Some of this equipment was given to me. They said, well, we don't need it. I said, I need it. I took all of it quickly. At home, I assembled it all into a working device and just started demonstrating it. It looked like magic with electricity, although I knew they weren't tricks, but real working devices. So how are they made so that they work like that? People started writing to me saying, listen, can you build this? Can you build that? And sell me this, sell me that. I saw it in one of your videos. This kind of gadget is something I'd love to have. Not exactly the same one, but yes, I can definitely make it happen. I started building all sorts of different devices based on people's requests. Some order devices for health, some for fun, some want to shoot lightning from their hands, all that stuff. I build them, basically, it makes me feel good. I earn a decent income, and at the same time, I keep practicing. I remember what Ashan showed me there. That's how things keep spinning and turning. And in 2019, I decided to set up another page on the internet, where I just start sharing my daily routines and practices with anybody out there who might be interested. Why? Because I realized I was really lacking the necessary motivation to do this alone. I'm constantly getting distracted by something, and I really wanted to engage in these practices much more and more often. I decided that since it's hard for me to motivate myself alone, I'll take on a small responsibility to host these broadcasts regularly. And so, starting in 2019, I began to regularly host broadcasts where I demonstrated these practices. In the same way online, like just like back in the day when Ashan used to do this via Skype, I started doing the same thing. And somehow this motivates me, pushes me to constantly stay in shape, to always keep track of what I practice on that day, that on that day I need to be energetically active, fiery. And I like it. But this isn't a source of income. Back then, everything was done on a donation basis. People gave as much as they wanted. Devices are being sold. I run these parallel broadcasts. Everything is great for me. But inside still, there's something pulsing. That the speed at which I'm moving toward my goal, toward my realization, my intention, it's not enough. I need to go faster, be more efficient, do more, be more active. But I'm doing it too sluggishly, too little. And I start slowly running through in my head how I could do things so that there would be more of everything. Then the war breaks out. Bank cards suddenly cease to function, all the warehouses around the world close their doors, and I am unable to purchase a transistor. I can't buy new modern ceramic capacitors, the specific kind that have a large capacitance and high electrical resistance in a small size. The people who used to place orders have gone quiet, everyone has disappeared. In other words, the orders that I thought would be coming soon, those people are like, no, listen, now's not the time for this. So people have also become increasingly silent, more emotionally withdrawn, and have simply stopped buying things. So I came up with a task for myself, how to do things faster and more efficiently. Again, I had already practiced, I had already started teaching little by little. I thought to myself, well, I need to somehow speak with Devi. There's a practice where you reach out to higher powers with a request, to show you something, to indicate exactly where to go next. It's not begging, it's very important to understand that. I wasn't begging, I wasn't saying, give me something. I said that I have an intention, and I need to reach it by the shortest possible path. It doesn't matter how, it's just that I don't see where to go. I don't understand. The beacon is drawn, but I lack the ability to sense where to go. Just show me the way, at least, so I can move somewhere. I do this practice. By the way, I've shown these specific practices from time to time in the practitioners club that exists right now. There are already more than 100 people regularly practicing with me there. And as I do this practice, I direct this impulse to the forces. And I know how to proceed from there. It's not like some force comes and says, here you go, take it. No, it's not like that. You just do it, just like back then when reality was on your side. And I just wait to see what happens now. And what happens at that moment. A person comes to Moscow. His last name is Radzevich, while his first name is Ilya, and he had placed a specific order with me. He had actually ordered a device from me called God Amen, or from me exactly. So we were tinkering with it, developing it for him, and it needed to be tested on myself. So I had a prototype already finished, he arrives, and I bring it to him. This prototype to the hotel, I come to see him, we talked about this and that, who I am, what I do, what other hobbies I have. So he took the prototype and then we met again. Again, he says it needs to be made more powerful, retuned. So I'm sitting there right in the hotel with a soldering iron. I came and I'm retuning this device. We keep talking. He suddenly says, listen, we need to record an interview with you. I'm like, record it where? What? What interview? Well, I mean, by now it's a habit. When something starts to open up, I don't even need to understand how it's going to lead me somewhere, because when you're practicing, when you're interacting with reality, interacting with the forces that are right in reality, you don't doubt, you don't worry, you don't get anxious, you don't feel afraid, you just immediately see that here it is, it's happening. And I say, what kind of interview is this anyway? How is it all supposed to work? What do you need from me? He says, you don't need to do anything, just come to the studio, I'll organize everything. Cool. And where is it? He mentions to me that it's all going to be on YouTube. Well, I thought, okay, then I have a channel too. In these races, how many people are there with Grammy Tom? 2,000 people, that's great. But at that specific time, he already had almost 1 million subscribers on his channel, and this whole interview process was being organized. And he says, listen, the only thing is we need to show people something, give them something, and, well, I have a suitcase and a cart that is completely full of various things I could give, so we can feel free to pick out absolutely whatever you want, Grefarit, but this day will be about 40 minutes, or perhaps even up to an hour long. some practices from your tradition, from your own system of knowledge, and I choose practices that are certainly not going to be the simplest ones. Not the most advanced either, but not really, well, not too basic. What truly resonates with the heart and soul are these 5 divine qualities. These are energies called will, energies called intention, energies called love, energies called sincerity, and something called conscience. If we speak a little in Sanskrit, these are energies. Ganesha, the energy, Shiva, the energy of the deity in the heart or soul, the energy of sincerity. This is your interaction with reality. And the energy of conscience, which is called conscience. In fact, this is the energy that comes into contact with the logic of the creator. That is not human logic, but the logic of the primordial. And these are 2 completely different kinds of logic. That is, according to human logic, you did something wrong there. But according to the logic of the primordial, you acted completely correctly. So they really don't match up at all. And so I said, let me show you these energies. So we do the filming, we hold the masterclass, and that's it. I just watch to see what happens next. All of this goes out onto the internet. Some time passes, and I keep trying to find ways to get electronic components. Gradually, parallel imports start to wake up a bit, and I manage to pull in some things from China. But there are a lot of counterfeits from China. Everything burns out, nothing works. I realize that the labeling is correct, but the component itself isn't right. It burns out. It can't operate under those conditions that it's supposed to work in. And I see how all my activities related to electricity are fading away. That's it, they're shutting down. And then, not long after that, I received a message from Ilya asking me, hey, are you fully aware of what is going on right now? And do you have a sense of how things are going? I say, no, I'm not. I don't talk to anyone. He says, your masterclass set a record. I say, all right, so people liked it. These people want to see more. He says, yeah, let's go. Now we'll start thinking about how to organize your next steps in this area, in this direction. And again, I see it, I feel that now this is my path, now this is the way I'm moving forward. In other words, this way I can achieve my goal faster, more easily, and more effectively. And I slowly start collaborating with the secret community. We film interviews, we record a practical energy course. There I demonstrate my knowledge, show exercises, and people like it. A massive crowd of people is now starting to gather together. We are already creating my channel, Anton Mikhailov, and we are making a Telegram channel called Domik. We are launching a closed club for practitioners, and we are preparing a report for those practicing. And that's it. And now, after electronics, after all these components, after all my research, after studying at the temple, now I myself have become a person who teaches, who demonstrates, who explains, who conveys this knowledge, who adapts it to the modern mentality, because there is the essence, there is tradition, there is what is passed down from generation to generation. From generation to generation there is parampara, and there is a way of explaining all of this, and it is constantly changing. Because if you use the terms and words that were used, I don't know, 1,000 years ago, no one will understand you anymore. They'll say, what are you talking about? And the task of a person, the task of an instructor, a master, and a shan is to adapt the delivery of this knowledge to the modern person. And that's what I do. The terminology is very simple and clear. We don't talk about chakras. For us, the term energy center really means a center from which everything opens up. We don't struggle to twist our tongues with Sanskrit terms like Vishuddha or Manipura. 1, 2, 3, 4. And why is that? Because there are 1,001, 1,000,001, 1,000,001, minus 1,001, minus 1,000,001. There are an enormous number of them. In a single body, there are about 360. There is,
by the way, an opinion that a person has 7 chakras.
Yes, on the
internet you can find a lot of pictures. How many did you say there are? Down, up, millions. Why did it turn out this way? So is it that incorrect, distorted information is deliberately being pushed on the internet?
In my opinion, there are several reasons. The primary and most significant reason is that the people who were translating the texts were not actually practitioners themselves. They translated as they thought was correct, and I really felt this very acutely. When I got my hands on the book Bhagavad Gita, I've read a lot of Vedic literature, the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also a very serious literary work, but I came across the Bhagavad Gita and there was something funny there. What was it? There was a text that had been translated and then an explanation by the author. Well, not the author, but the translator. So there was a kind of literal translation and then the translator's explanation to make it clear what it was all about. I read the literal translation, I understand everything, it all resonates with me, it awakens my heart, my energy feels happy from reading this text. I mean, I feel it extrasensorially, this text is alive, it puts me into a certain state, an energetic state. Then I shift my eyes to the notation, meaning what the translator is trying to convey in their own words. And there it's nonsense, it's just rubbish, something that doesn't correspond to reality. What's written there is utter gibberish. And all my energy gets blocked, tensed up, spasms, and fades away. I thought, I'm not going to read what he's trying to explain there, I'll just read the original text myself. And I have personally come across this in many different books, especially when the translator or the publisher, in an attempt to clarify the original text, ends up making truly catastrophic mistakes, just wild mistakes. And only someone who actually practices can see these mistakes. If a person doesn't interact with energy, if they don't develop extrasensory abilities, if they can't see how energy moves, they won't notice these mistakes, and the people making them aren't even doing it on purpose. They genuinely want to help, but they're not practitioners, they don't have visions. So how can they decipher these ancient texts? And ancient texts are allegories. It's by analogy, it's abstraction. Ancient texts are not concrete. Take, for example, the same Shima Talavatami. There's a text about a woman walking with a dragon through a castle. In reality, the castle has 5 entrances and exits, and these entrances and exits are guarded by the dragon. And you read this story and you're like, I want that. In reality, this is a description of the physical body. The dragon is this Kundalini energy, and the woman is the vortex in the womb, which rises up, receiving intention. The entrances and exits are the openings in our physical body. So when you're not immersed in the tradition, when no one has ever explained this to you, you just don't know. But in the tradition, this knowledge exists. In Sri Vidya, this knowledge is there. Otherwise, you might just say it's some kind of fairy tale. Who knows what it's about? And as for the chakras, all 7 chakras, I found information describing these chakras, and sometimes you read the word chakra. But the description is actually about a completely different process, which also exists in a person, and is also located more or less at that same level. But this process is beyond the physical body. I can even say more. When you immerse yourself in texts related to yantra, these are enormous structures surrounding the physical body. It's geometry, vortices, forces that are present around you. It's Shakti Devi, which can even be perceived as real feminine forms. There too the word chakra is present. The first chakra, the second chakra. And so a person who doesn't understand at all what this is about tries to simplify everything down to some kind of family context. But that's not the case. In the texts, sometimes the same word is used on, for example, Shiva. Shiva is a rishi. Shiva is the primordial one. Shiva is the original source. Shiva is a character in certain events. The same word. And then you come across a text where there are 108 names of Shiva. And you're like, what's even going on? And then in the text, you come across, for example, a paragraph like this where a frenzied, some kind of demon form in the shape of a dog with a bell-shaped maw is chasing after Brahma, or rather, Brahma is chasing after this dog, because this dog bit off his head, Brahma, and there everything is just, well, total chaos, to put it simply. And Vishnu is watching all of this, and his wife comes up, Vishnu's wife comes up to him and says, listen, what on earth is going on? Vishnu says, Shiva bit off Shiva's head, and now his Shiva is chasing after Shiva to get Shiva's head back. And you just sit there trying to process this text like, what on earth did I just read? So these settings are present in the text, but if no one has explained them to you, if no one has clarified what a chakra is, there's this chakra, there's that chakra, there's a chakra here, there's a chakra there, here are chakras, there are chakras everywhere, and all of these are chakras, and these chakras exist. On the physical level, there are chakras. On the level of the energy body, there are chakras. On the level of consciousness, there are chakras. It's all the same word, but completely different processes. And so when a translator tries to translate this, sometimes in a single sentence, they start by describing chakras located along the central line, then go on to describe chakras that are actually outside the physical body, and then even start describing processes that have nothing to do with chakras at all. But they are also somehow found in those areas because, for example, let's take the pelvis, the pelvic region. What is manifested there? The energy centers, the first and second chakras, the center. I will talk more about this, but Ganesha's energies are manifested there. What are these energies? They are simply energies. Of will, there are vortices manifested there. Vortices in the womb, vortices around, and a ray of intention. There is also a lake of consciousness manifested there. There are gates manifested there that allow you to immerse yourself in parallel worlds. And all of this is on the same level. It's all at the level of the pelvic bone. Energies are manifested there. Kundalini, the Ida and Pingala begin there. The Sushumna passes through there. The Sushumna not only moves along the back, but this energy also moves along the front and the central part of the body. This trident is a symbol of Shiva. Shiva. It's not just some kind of fork that you carry around. These are rays of intention that penetrate our physical body. You can actually see and feel them yourself. These rays, those who have looked at this trident no longer see it as just a fork. They curve like this, and that is also a sign. This is also a symbol. When you observe how your rays move, they bend. They extend from your forehead, from the back of your head, and they go upward. Where do they go? There are areas here, gates, that have the ability. You have the opportunity to immerse your attention into these gates and receive knowledge and information from there. But you already know where all of this is located, how to open it, how to reach it. You need to receive the settings from a person who has all of this open. If it is closed in you and you try to reach it, it remains closed. If a person has it open and starts practicing with you, then you enter into resonance. You synchronize and you also begin to open up according to the principles of resonance. But this person must also be in the electricity in the same way. It's like there's a Tesla tower connected to electricity, and there's a Tesla tower that's not connected to anything. No, it doesn't have electricity. And so when the Tesla tower that's connected to electricity starts working, generating fields, it gets a discharge at the top, a lightning bolt. And the tower standing next to it, completely disconnected from electricity, also gets a lightning bolt. It has entered into resonance. It's the same thing here. But if you're disconnected from the start, if all of this is closed off in you, no lightning will appear. And all of this exists in the tradition. It's all part of the training system. In the practices, I show all of this, explain it, talk about it, train. We organize meetings, retreats, seminars, initiations, weekly practices, and Q&A sessions. So, for example, a person who purchases one of my courses, they have the opportunity to ask me a question personally at least once a week, live on air. That is, I won't even be sitting there Googling everything. So I sit live on air, a person asks a question, I read it and immediately answer. That is, I am sharing everything I know, exactly how it all actually happens. And all of this is in very high demand right now. Many people continue to join us. They step into these ancient traditions, into this vast knowledge. And that's wonderful.
So then, what you just talked about, the channels, the gates, the centers, you actually cover all of this in detail in the first course. Yes, that's right.
Yes. When we organized all of this, I said, Liuka, what should I talk about? He said, just talk, that's all. Although nowadays he says, why did you talk about that? Back then I didn't really understand. Sometimes you just talk about something, and he often says, I get it, but let's move some of these things to the next level. Let's take them out for now. Otherwise it triggers processes that are too intense right from the start.
But you mentioned sacred scriptures and books, yet in the Shvidya tradition itself, there are actually no books and no sacred scriptures. First of all, if you remove all those abstractions and all the fancy words, simply put, what is Shvidya? That's the first question. And the second question, what is so secret, so hidden there? Why shouldn't it be made public? Why is there a prohibition on passing on this knowledge, and how did that come about? Is that right?
The third question will be, when did you realize that you had the right to do this? Sri Vidya is a sacred technology that allows fragments of consciousness to fully remember their truth. So if I simplify my answer as much as possible, it's a technology that allows you to remember who you truly are from the very beginning. Nothing can distract you from this process if you know how to do it.
By from the very beginning, we mean?
We can use the word God. We can use the word Atman. We can use the term primordial Brahma. Or we can use the word Shiva. They all refer to the same thing. You can say absolute, you can say first source. It's all the same. And we are a part of this first source, but we have forgotten about it. Our perception is extremely limited. Our abilities are atrophied, castrated from all sides. We are a broken system. We cannot perceive the full spectrum of everything manifested. That's how it happened. We could philosophize about this for a long time, but it's simply a fact. And so there is a way to regain the memory of who you truly are. In fact, there is a way to break free from those illusions, from all delusions, from all foolishness, from all idiocy, from all the forces and structures that make us forget, that make us slaves. You can get out of all of this, and you can remember your true nature. And the knowledge of how to do this is what Sri Vidya is. That is, it is Vidya, meaning the perception of everything. Sri is the absolute, its perception. Complete perception, its full range. Who possesses the full spectrum? The creator, the source. That is to become him, not just similar, but him.
Why are there no sacred scriptures or books in Sri Vidya? Why is it not communicated through a text message?
There is Vidya and there is Janana. Jnana is simply the transmission of information through text, through conveying it by stories, conversations, tales, and that is all it really is. That is essentially how it works. And then there is Vidya. These are distinctly different traditions. And in the Vidya tradition, sacred knowledge was not traditionally recorded in written form. Why? Because it's like there is the army and there are special forces. That is, these are people who must have all of this trained, practiced to perfection. It should be right at their fingertips. It should be mastery. And as soon as you start writing things down, you get a very strong temptation. I've written it down, but it's stored somewhere. It doesn't become part of your mastery. It doesn't become your experience. How many people have filled tons of paper while studying at school? Tons of paper while studying at university. It didn't make them any more skilled. They come to work. And what should they do? And then some employee comes over and says, okay, just do it like I do. And when it's do as I do, you're no longer just standing there taking notes. You take your hands out of your pockets and start doing. And it's in the process of doing that you gain skill and experience. You become an experienced person. You don't become experienced by simply taking notes and writing things down. It's ineffective for learning. So you see, the education system is built in such a way that either you practice and do things, or you train and demonstrate. That's it. There are no other options. There's no option where you just document, write things down, store it all somewhere on some kind of media. That doesn't work. A book or a text won't convey energetic states to you. A book is dead. It isn't alive. It doesn't have that very consciousness that can show you the forms of yantras. It doesn't have that very consciousness that can show you the vibrations of the center. A person who knows how to do this will show it to you. Again, if I write Tesla coil, that's not a device that can produce lightning. And if there is no device that can produce lightning, then the second Tesla coil, which is unpowered, in no way will be able to produce that lightning either. And just because I write Tesla coil works and stick this note to the coil that's unpowered, nothing will happen. In other words, text does not allow you to learn effectively and quickly. It doesn't give you the opportunity within the lifespan of your physical body to actually figure out who you are, what you're in, and what you're a part of. You simply don't have time. You just literally don't have enough time. That's why in my tradition, in my parampara, we never wrote anything down. Either you know how to do it, that's it, you know it, you've learned it, and it can't be taken away from you. Or you're learning to do it, but you don't waste your time on anything else. You don't waste time on useless paperwork. You spend your time constantly on your own mastery, on your own experience. That's how the system is built, that's how it's structured.
What's so secret and mysterious about Shlevidya? Why exactly has it been shrouded in complete secrecy for thousands of long years? And how did you eventually find yourself becoming the very person who would go on YouTube and openly discuss these mysteries to an audience of many thousands?
Yes, that's an interesting question, actually. For a while, I didn't know the answer. I didn't know the answer before, but now I do. Now I see the answer. Even if we look at Wikipedia, you can find a detailed article about the video saying that this tradition is more than 20,000 years old. So these are the very most ancient and profound teachings available to humanity. Within our own tradition, there is information that this tradition has been passed down from era to era. Each era lasts millions of years. But here, some people may agree, some may not, but this is a tradition that was passed down at the very moment of the creation of humanity itself. It was gradually passed on from the very first seekers, the very first practitioners, from master to student, all the way to the present day. And if it had been completely closed off, absolutely secret, there would have been no transmission at all. No one would have known about it if it had been absolutely open. It would have turned into a religion. Now, there are various religions, but they aren't particularly beneficial or practical in daily life. Often these religions tend to create more complex problems than actual benefits. That's why there simply had to be a sense of balance. But you can't truly see this balance when you've just started the stages of your training. So when you start your training, you find yourself in a situation where no one tells you anything, no one answers your questions, no one explains anything to you. They just tell you practice, train, do exercises. Don't know what to do? Here's a mantra for you. And there are some mantras like this and some like that. Everything exists, but you have just one mantra, and until it starts to resonate within you, until it comes alive inside you, you won't have any other mantras. Until you unlock your vision, until you unlock it, the perception of energy, no one is going to chew it over for you, like what's here, how it unfolds, what it looks like, what's this, what's that. Just sit and watch. You will learn, you will see, and you won't have this question anymore. And so when a person is training, when they're practicing, when they're growing, there is a constant uninterrupted flow of information saying that this is secret, it's closed off, you can't talk about it. But what are you going to talk about? You don't even know how to do anything yet. You have to reach a certain level, certain abilities. I remember a situation when I was browsing the internet. I was curious, well, this information has to be somewhere. It has to surface somehow. I found the location of my ashram on an Indian television channel. That is, my ashram was on Indian television. They were, you could say, going to Kora, to the place, to the holy place, to the place of power. And there was a report being broadcast from there. And he also ended up in the frame. He shouted there, Har Har Mahadev. And they calmly walked on with the disciples. I saw those disciples, I saw him, and there they were, going further to the holy place connected with Shakti Devi. This is the place. And I was like, wait, how did you end up on television? What were you doing there? Why did you... What? Why? At that time, I wasn't thinking about questions like, Shan, what's going on? I found you on the internet. Back then, I just kept practicing. But over time, over a long period of time, I simply saw that these rules, these orders, they only apply up to a certain point. Up to your level of personal ability, your level of inner consciousness. And at a certain level of spiritual awareness, at a certain level of true mastery, you start to see how Devi is guiding you toward realizing your deepest intention. You begin to see what you are capable of and what will be extremely difficult for you, something you might not even be able to handle. You start to see how you could completely destroy your own sense of self right now, simply self-destruct, and how you could withstand the intense pressure of the difficult psychological processes that are about to come your way in the moments ahead. And every single time I took deliberate action to manifest and reveal some sacred part of Vidya, some profound part of ancient knowledge, a huge number of rigid structures and established systems would immediately attack me, fiercely and relentlessly resisting the flow of this information. Why does this happen? It is because this information, this deep knowledge, and these transformative practices ultimately make a person truly free. They return to him his sovereign will, his innate power, and his divine ability to express that will in the world. They give him the ability to move in any direction. They set him free. And when you are the property of another individual, the master has absolutely no desire for you to disrupt or interfere with this process. The system doesn't want its individual cogs to fall out of the mechanism. And every single time when I am perfectly and fully aware that I am just about to give a new practice, a brand new level, I was under tremendous pressure from various systems, but I have my practice, I have knowledge, I have configurations that I have created with my own energy. Currently, I possess yantras that are in the process of merging and uniting, and I have taken specific, deliberate steps toward the true and complete likeness of the original. And this allowed me to withstand this onslaught. But I fully understand that I am still only moving toward the primordial state, only moving toward realizing my intention. My strength is not infinite. That's why I regulate it. Right now, I am ready to work one-on-one with a person. Some time passed and I became stronger, more resilient. So I thought, okay, now I am ready to work with 12 people at once. No more, that's it, no need for more. Then after some more time passes, maybe I'll say, yes, I'm ready to take on even more people, to pull even more people out of these system mechanisms, to give them knowledge, to give them freedom, to give them the freedom of expression, to show them these settings. Reality is not against it, the forces are not against it, the systems are against it, the masters of people are against it. And these masters are sometimes just other people, another person who has become much more aware, has learned something valuable and thinks, aha, now I won't tell anyone else, I'll use this for myself, I'll have a herd, my very own herd. A herd of beings similar to the original, but to whom I won't give this knowledge, to whom I won't tell that they are free, to whom I will say that you are slaves. You must obey me, you must pray to me, you must serve me. Then I come along and say, come on guys, what are you doing? You are fragments of the original, what service? Universal love, wholeness, and complete unity. No slaves, it is time to wake up. Naturally, the systems don't like this. And the system attacks, and you have to withstand it, you have to hold on. The more profound and deep these processes are, the more sacred and revered the knowledge becomes. I show that the more transformative the practices I conduct, the more severe, harsh, and aggressively these institutional systems attack both me and our entire group. And you can feel it, everyone feels it, but otherwise how else would you gain freedom? And so when you are learning, these systems will simply tear you apart if you do this. That's why Ashan tells you, don't even think about telling anyone about this. When you already see how it happens, when you see how these systems pounce on your own Shan, you see it, you literally see it energetically like, aha. You start to wonder, am I even ready to do all this? Do I really want reality to treat me this way, or do I not want that? But if Devi tells you this is your path, follow it. I have no doubts. That means I can move forward, that means I can endure it. Yes, I don't set myself any incredible tasks, I'm not trying to, say, liberate anyone, all of humanity. For now I maintain a balance. The people who come to me on their own, I show them everything. The people who don't come to me, I don't touch them. Let them continue to remain in the processes they're in. And by proceeding in this way, the system's resistance to my activities is gradually softened. So the answer is very simple. The systems don't want people to become free. As soon as you give them real knowledge, the system starts to fight you. And the only question is how much of it you can withstand. That's why it's secret, closed off. It's closed not because you're doing something bad. It's closed because you're simply looking out for yourself so you don't get torn apart for no reason.
What was revealed to you inside, not just as an abstract theory, but as profound direct knowledge, when you entered the Shividi tradition?
That all of this can be trained. That you don't need to be especially gifted. You don't need to have a sorcerer, wizard, or sage in your family line, or a grandfather who was a sage. So nothing needs to be passed down to you, none of that is necessary. Just an ordinary Soviet family, ordinary grandmothers and grandfathers. A vegetable garden, a pension, a dacha, apartments, that's all. None of those limitations held me back in any way. I saw that you can have every single bit of this. I saw that you can actually journey to the primordial source. I saw that you can personally experience and connect with power, even if you are currently a nobody in the human hierarchy. But in reality, you are a human being, and a human is a powerful, great being whose powers have been forgotten, made to forget what our true nature is. Again, why and how, that's a separate topic for discussion, but that's just the fact. That's just the fact. When a person is truly terrified, when a person doesn't know their own strength, when they try, they pray to pictures, pray to various ancient idols, hoping that someone will intervene and do something for them. You spend your whole life turning yourself inside out. Who is going to do anything for you? At best, what will happen is nothing more than simply this. They will use you, making you do things that benefit the systems, that benefit those who know more, who understand more, but not for your benefit. No one will give you a button called money. No one will give you a button called spirituality that you can just press. Oh, that's it, I see everything now. No, no one is going to give you that. Everyone will just keep draining you and draining you and draining you until you're completely depleted, until you're sucked dry and die, or until illnesses eat you up. And even then they'll give you a pill, but it won't cure you. It will only delay the inevitable, and while it's delaying the inevitable, they'll keep feeding off you. Look around you, it's all happening, 24/7. And those who say, guys, I'll show you how to break free from all this, how to escape, well, where are they? And so you see it, you feel it deeply, but you see, I have the knowledge, I have the unique ability to withstand this immense pressure, to endure this relentless onslaught. And that is what drives me forward toward finally realizing my true intention. Well, some people train with dumbbells, each weighing about 1 kilogram, while others take a barbell, lie down and lift it to a certain degree. Right now, my path is like an incredibly massive barbell that's been fully loaded up with weight for a long time, and I lift it every now and then. It's dangerous, but I want to move quickly.
What was the hardest thing for you at the very beginning when you first came to the monastery? I mean, you lived in the monastery for 6 years, studying.
I learned
here. So, what was the hardest part?
The most difficult part of the process is coming to terms with the idea that no one is ever going to do anything for you, that you're not needed there as a complainer, that you're not needed there as part of the flock, and that absolutely nobody is particularly interested in your presence. There in general, no one needed you. You just had to remain in a constant state of high-performance work mode. It is me who needs this. I'm the one training, and every single bit of it is being done with my own hands. Every time there was the slightest weakness, the slightest breakdown, you'd hear, well, get out of here. Why the hell do we need someone like you here? Why are you going to start whining here? Go on, get out of here. Outside the grounds, do whatever you want there, among others like you. That was hard. It was hard to accept that you were being treated like that. Still, you kind of wanted, some sort of homegrown, some kind of love for someone to feel sorry for you, to tell you like, it's okay, just sit around for a few days doing nothing. No, everything was very harsh.
Not like a pioneer camp, right?
Not even close. I'm telling you, it was like special forces. There wasn't even the slightest chance for self-pity there. And
well, aside from your intention, right, and the fact that you probably had a lot, what did you have to give up before making the decision to go to the monastery? I am well aware of the fact that you also had some significant financial obligations to manage. You had to pay for it.
Yes, of course.
It's not free?
No, it's not free. At first, when I arrived there, when I was there, I had nothing. They said, yeah, well, that's okay, we'll teach you now, you'll get opportunities, you'll gain knowledge, and you'll be able to start paying it off somehow. Since you can't pay for your stay, you must simply be useful to this place and do something helpful. And that is what I did. I diligently cleaned the entire temple, I carefully washed all the floors, and I polished the various temple items such as the lamps and other ritual objects. Essentially, I was working hard to pay off the training I was receiving at the time. And that was quite something too. Everything there is very strict and organized, so you don't fool around. No one bothered you if you said, I'm dedicating myself to the practice of reading mantras. In the morning, as soon as you opened your eyes, you would already be crawling to the temple, sit down there and start reciting mantras. No one will bother you, no one will distract you, and no one will say, hey, what are you doing reading mantras here? Go mop the floors, man. No, if you're practicing, if you're engaged in practice, you're untouchable. Just keep training. But if you finished your mantra reading and you're just sitting there thinking, what should I do now? Well, there's plenty of work to do around here. This temple doesn't just exist, you know, from money falling from the sky or from money falling like rain. Yashan was actually earning quite well, very decently indeed back then. He was giving massages to people, to those who weren't initiated. So he was making money through massages. The people who practiced with him, whatever they were doing, they were also earning money. Some people earned money directly through this knowledge. Some were simply engaged in socially useful activities. Why does someone give you money? Because you are useful to that person. Some were in business, some in trade. Everyone did their own thing. And everyone applied these skills. They grew, became more effective, got new positions and received higher salaries. And all of this flowed into the temple so that the temple could exist. I looked at the accounts. Everything was transparent. I checked the accounts. I reviewed the expenses. I saw how the septic systems broke down. I saw how equipment failed. I saw how much it all cost. It's not just a small house or something. It's quite a large complex with heated floors, restrooms everywhere, a student house, a kitchen and electricity. They even brought in a generator and a transformer. There wasn't enough electrical capacity to power it all, so they had to replace it. But this building, all of it required money, and that money was provided by practitioners, by the people practicing. Yes, those who had been there for decades, more than 10 years, there wasn't much money, but they contributed a lot. I did everything I could, whether it was through labor or later on when I gradually... So when I finally started to feel like I could actually do something, I also began to pay for my training. Each individual practice session had its own specific price. A significant portion of that would go directly to the teacher because, well, he had a large family to look after. He had children who also needed support and care. Part of the money went toward maintaining the ancient temple grounds, and some went to building other new temples. It eventually turned out that by the time I saw one temple for myself, it was already the 5th one he had built. And now there is a 6th temple, it is still being built, and people who have been in this tradition for 20 years, even 25 years, they continue to give a portion of their income so that all of this can live on, so that it can all function. Otherwise, how could it be? Listen, let's be honest, just to live in my own apartment, like I live in an apartment in Moscow right now, I constantly pay money just to live in my own apartment, even that's how it is. So over there, it's just taken for granted, it was simply understood.
What exactly did you have to sacrifice before making the final decision to get into all of this?
But I can't really say that I gave anything up, like specifically. I was always completely fired up and motivated, absolutely ready to just go for it with my full force. For me, it was really important to get to the bottom of things, to understand my true nature, to develop my skills, my own skills. It wasn't enough for me to just hear about how someone amazing like Milarepa soared through the sky after eating nettles. I wanted to fly myself, even if it meant eating nettles too. I had a different approach. I wasn't satisfied with just stories. All those stories or even demonstrations like Sai Baba showing all sorts of materializations didn't do it for me. I wanted to materialize things myself, not just watch him do it. But he didn't teach that. That's the problem. But there, they actually taught you how to do it. Anything you wanted, any aspect, whatever you desired. I wanted to see, I wanted the ability to enter different spaces. Bardo, I wanted to develop the ability to immerse myself in all sorts of parallel, multidimensional parts of this reality. I wanted to see Kali, I wanted to see Shiva. And all of that was there. Go ahead, train, learn, here's the technology for you. I didn't refuse anything. That's how it was, but the only thing I didn't do was simply because it didn't work out. I had basically lost all my career opportunities. In other words, I put everything on the line. I was basically deprived of a career, of career growth. I lost my family too, because what kind of family can you have if you spend all day reciting mantras? A family is expensive, a family requires constant financial investment, and I was just sitting there chanting Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. What money could there be? My relationship with my parents was hanging by a thread because this was unacceptable. What are you doing there? In what temple? What's wrong with you? You've completely lost your mind. No further education, no learning any popular profession, so to speak. Now, all of that was lost. So while all the ordinary people, my close friends and my former classmates, were busy starting families, building successful careers and making good money, I was just sitting there constantly practicing. And to say that I lost all that, it was a conscious choice. I knew it would be this way. But I was fine with it. I agreed to it. That was my sacrifice, so to speak, for the sake of knowledge.
You mentioned the Bardo space.
Yes.
This concept is featured in the Tibetan Book of the Dead and in various other traditions. Many traditions also speak about reincarnation, the cycle of rebirths. What is Sri Vitiya's philosophical perspective on reincarnation? Does the possibility of life continuing after death exist? And does rebirth truly exist?
Listen, well, actually, this is actually quite a complex and multifaceted matter. This topic of reincarnation is very well known, yet it often seems to contradict itself in various ways. That is to say, if we look closely at the details of the spiritual traditions and organized religions where it is believed that this exists, even within those very same traditions and religions, first of all, there is information that time itself is actually an illusion, and if time is an illusion, if there is neither past nor future, then where would you find reincarnations? So it immediately contradicts itself. Secondly, for example, there is Buddhism, there are incorruptible monks, there are monks who hide their bodies. In caves, there are monks who hide their bodies in temple complexes, in basement rooms. Why do you do this? Go reincarnate, keep practicing? No. For some reason, they do this. That is, they know more than they say. There is the wheel of samsara, and breaking free from the wheel of samsara is considered a great blessing. So what? If you just die, you haven't escaped the wheel of samsara. All of this exists in those traditions as well. In Buddhism itself, there is the rainbow body. That's when your physical body turns into pure energy, and you leave this world as a stream of light. If reincarnation exists, why would you need to do that? Do you understand? Reincarnation is essentially like chewing gum to keep you in the system, to keep you trapped as a slave, so you can calm yourself down. Well, if it doesn't work out in this current life, maybe it will in the next one. But the truth is, there won't be any next life. You'll just die, that's it. And those who were parasitizing off you will just keep parasitizing off others. It dulls your vigilance. This idea of reincarnation, it dulls your motivation. You become like a vegetable when you start thinking about the world. What now? First I'll die, and then everything will be fine for me. It's just awful, really. And if you actually start looking into these traditions, it's written in black and white that this isn't the case. Are there parallel worlds? Yes, there are. Does our stream have multiple physical bodies? Yes, it does. But I saw over there that I was someone or something in Egypt. So all of this is happening in parallel. It's all happening simultaneously. It's like a movie that you have on your hard drive. It's stored there in its entirety. All the frames are there. Yes, can you watch this movie? You can watch it frame by frame, but you can also skip to the beginning, jump to the end, or start in the middle. It's the same thing. Everything exists at once, simultaneously. And you are a fragment of the original. You are a fragment of the original source that immerses itself in this physical world. You gain a unique kind of life experience here, then you die. In the standard model, your physical body dies, that's it. It slowly turns back into dust to ashes. Then your fragment of consciousness flows into your energetic body, who develops their energetic bodies. Yeah, almost no one actually does this. Your energetic body literally falls apart in just a few days, that's it. It dissipates into space, and your fragment of consciousness, having left these two bodies, the physical and the energetic, go to the Bardo space. In this space, it is determined what will happen next. For people of the Kali Yuga, what is the Kali Yuga now? The Kali Yuga is a time when fragments of consciousness come to degenerate, they come to decay, they come to act foolishly. And so when you spent your allotted physical lifetime acting foolishly, you as a fragment of consciousness end up in a space. Bardo, you have a surge of rejection, a wave of panic, of aversion. You don't understand what's happening because you never even considered that this could happen to you. And your perception completely collapses. You can no longer perceive anything. And in this particular state of being, the fragment of consciousness is transported and sent to a dimension known as the first gate. This is a dimension, by the way, described in the Bible, in the very first books of the Bible. And now it's
the shadow realm.
Yes. If we read in the very first biblical text, the descriptions of hell, there everything is accurate, but later it all turned into some kind of clown show with devils. There are no devils there, but this space is described in the Bible according to
what we have.
This space is the absence of movement, the absence of thought. This is the space when you are in a coma.
Tamaguna, yes, it is actually quite similar to Tamaguna.
You could say that, yes. So there you are, absolutely non-perceiving, but still a tiny part of it all. Initially, you are completely cramped in there, and you look just like a little black crystal, a tiny dark black one. Well, there are all these points. Some of them we can see, and some of them we simply don't.
And what happens next?
And then, in that state, you wait until the very end of all time. Again, that's directly from the Bible. I am not making this up. Until the end of time, you remain in that state. Yes, technically, you are not completely destroyed. But here there is life, there are colors, there are cartoons, there are situations and events, there is love, there is sincerity, there is suffering, there are all sorts of possible scenarios. But there you are completely tangled up within yourself and can't perceive anything in that state. You wait for the Mahapralaya. Mahapralaya is when all of reality merges again into a point. Well, yes, once you wait for that moment, you as a little black dot also merge together with all of reality.
You will unite with all of us.
Of course, you will unite with everything, but that will happen only at the very end when time ends forever and ever, as some like to say. That is when everything, the entire universe, all of reality ceases to exist. Well, in my opinion, that's a long time to wait. In such a shriveled state, like a dried up backpack and so dark. It's not a very good idea, but that's the reality for you. That's what can happen to you in most cases. Why? Because right now we are living in the Kali Yuga, and here it's quite easy to just lazily drift from one day to the next. And you'll already start to fade away and slowly degrade. It is just like going outside in the winter. If you do nothing at all, if you're not properly dressed for the weather, you'll freeze. In the summer, of course, you won't freeze. But right now it is not summer, it is the middle of winter. And so just going about your daily routine is enough to completely destroy you, to squeeze you, to dry you out, and to empty you. In the end, when you lose your physical body, you'll see how it died, your physical body. You'll lose your energy body, you'll see how it fell apart. You'll get sucked into a space where you have no idea what's happening. There's this panic, this fast, this twitching, and then, bam, your consciousness completely collapses.
By the way, in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it says that when you enter the Bardo space, it's very important there, specifically, not to get scared and not to tense up.
Everything written there is correct, absolutely correct, but you will get scared and tense up, if only because you've never been there before. Our psyche always reacts to something new with fear. That's how it trains you.
Is it possible to go there before death and come back?
Of course, and in fact, there are practices, there are techniques for this. By the way, not only in the Vedas, Buddhists also have such techniques. Yes, it's a tradition. Oh, not Buddhists. Not Buddhists. I was recently in Tibet, and there I discovered that, as it turns out, there is the Bon tradition. And until I went there, I thought there was traditional Buddhism and Bon Buddhism. And many people would agree with me now. But after actually being there and experiencing it all, I saw that there is Bon, which actually has absolutely nothing to do with Buddhism. It is a completely self-sufficient tradition. There are Buddhists who, in their interactions with Bon practitioners, actually consider the Bon people to be sorcerers or magicians. They look at each other that way. And in the Bon tradition, there are also techniques that apparently are similar in principle to ours, allowing one to immerse oneself in a certain space. Bardo without death, that is, to be there in advance, to spend some time there. In my life, I have been there at least 3 times, absolutely consciously, thanks to the practices, thanks to the techniques.
Can you describe what it is? With some words, some concepts.
Listen, these vast spaces are in principle completely indescribable. But I can at least try to find the right words so that you might have at least some vague idea of what they are like. Although I still perfectly understand that it's like trying to describe a vibrant rainbow to a blind person. He will inevitably still come up with something entirely of his own imagination. Until you see it, until you experience it, you'll just be imagining things. That's a fact. But I'll try to choose the most accurate words possible. What is it? It is a vast dimension that stretches beyond the reach of the egg of the universe. It is a space that exists far beyond you in your role as a character within this universe. This is the place where your fragment of consciousness is completely severed and liberated from all possible forms. It's where you originally are, but you might not realize this because out of habit you perceive things the way you're used to perceiving them. In other words, if you're used to walking with your eyes closed, then even if you have the opportunity to open them, you'll still keep them closed out of habit. And so when you end up there, it's absolutely crucial what particular state and condition your body of consciousness is in. If your body of consciousness is in a dormant or inactive state, and this already relates to the knowledge of yantras, if your body of consciousness is very limited, severely depleted or multifaceted, if it has fallen asleep multiple times and is no longer functioning, then you will simply see a vast emptiness there, an absolutely impenetrable emptiness, a total black void. You won't be able to perceive anything, and you won't be able to fix your focused attention on anything. You will, so to speak, stew in your own thoughts. Your memory and your thoughts will gradually fade away. That is, you start to forget who you are, how you got here, how to speak, in a state as if you are fading away. That's it. You are dying at that moment and shutting down. In other words, your ability to perceive completely collapses. But if you still have a living physical body, then it will eventually pull you back out of that state and you will find yourself in the body once again. Therefore, it is quite safe. And this means that you as a practitioner, you as a particle of consciousness, well, are already in a dead state. You can't do anything in space. Make Bardo, and when you end up there without a physical body, that's the anchor. That's the anchor that will pull you out of there. But if you end up there and there's no physical body, no energy body, you're there alone with yourself. There's no way for you to get out. That's it. After that, you completely fade away and reset to zero. But if on top of that you get scared, you'll shrink even more, meaning you'll tense up and form a crystal, a rigid structure. Although, well, crystal sounds nice, but really you form a lump of dirt, ash, dust. Just like in the ash pit of a stove, those little particles lie there, and you fall to the bottom of the first shells. And then, in your new form, you begin to move through the space of likeness. This space of likeness is the first gate, the afterlife. As far as I remember, when I listened to the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it talked about how it's kind of like, at least as I imagine it, like a stairwell with several doors, so to speak. And that's why it's important to practice entering this space while you're still alive, in the Bardo, so that after death, first of all, you don't get scared, and secondly, so you can choose the right channel for this movement. Is that correct or not? Every spiritual practitioner, no matter what they follow. You transition from one space to another, and in the Bardo, your true intention is determined. The deep intention you have cultivated within yourself over many decades will function there, it will manifest there, and everything will happen instantly there. You won't have time to think once you've already passed through. It's precisely death. When you don't have this death yet, as long as your physical body is alive, you can be here. You can reflect on things. And the more awakened your consciousness is, the more fiery your consciousness becomes. The more facets of the Yantra that have awakened within you, the more you perceive there. When I ended up there for the first time, I actually started to lose myself and fade away. When, years later, I ended up there for the second time, I was already more lively. I was already trying to do something, trying to become enlightened, to look around, to actually feel something, some processes, some energies. I was already perceiving something there. A few more years later, I was like, oh, the Bardo space. I know that from here you can look at the egg of the universe. I know that from here you can look at all these world lines, the scenarios of the world. I looked at these scenarios, they're really cool, energetic. These are streams that emanate from Brahma, generating these flows endlessly. Some get drawn back into it and disappear, some appear anew, and these streams are where these particles of consciousness get stuck and observed. And you look at all of this from the outside and think, aha, wow, so that's how it really is. So here we are. It's a cartoon. We're inside this cartoon. We don't see anything real. And only when we distract ourselves from this cartoon can we see that it's like wearing virtual reality glasses. They need to be taken off. Inside virtual reality, you won't find anything real. You have to take them off. And so the Bardo space is exactly when you take off those glasses. So when I was there again, after many years, I was like, okay, let me check this out. For example, I can look at the vast waters of the entire world, or I can look at the infinite and mysterious Kali space, or I can even look at this pillar, the light of Shiva, the mountain, Meru, and you start moving around there. You begin to travel and you are completely and fully conscious of your surrounding. You are free in your movement. Then I realized that I could stop everything right now and permanently halt my inevitable return to these cartoons here. Never come back here again, never return. At that moment, your body is lying there unconscious. If anyone is interested in what happens to the body at that moment, it just lies there like that. I was like, I could just not go back there anymore. Basically, I am able to move on, to pass through space. Bardo to freedom. But what stopped me was, first of all, there are still some things I would like to do, to experience. In other words, there are still passions in this world, and I would gladly resolve them. And yet I wanted to enter here in a different way. I wanted to enter here having realized the body of light. By the way, Jesus Christ realized the body of light and demonstrated this practice. To this day, the Shroud of Turin bears the trace of this after that act. Some Buddhists have realized the body of light, very rarely, but they possess this knowledge, known as light body.
Briefly explain the body of light realization.
Carlos Castaneda calls it the fire from within. It's when your physical flesh, which is potentially made of pure consciousness, of highly transformed but pure consciousness. And this transformation is reversed and it becomes pure consciousness again. Every cell of your body, every atom once again becomes pure consciousness. And at that moment you simply disappear from the cartoon.
Physically.
You physically disappear, yes. That is, there is no corpse left of you, no dead body remains.
And how does this work in terms of physics? Is it an increase in energy level so high that...
Speed. An increase in the speed of energy movement, so much so that your body simply transforms.
your atoms just start flying apart?
No, they transform. For example, there is such a process. Physicists have something like this: synthesis, nuclear fusion. That's when atoms fuse together and release a huge amount of energy. But here, all of you, all your matter fuses together, and the release of this energy turns into pure consciousness. We have an enormous amount of energy contained in this flesh. And that's really amazing. When you can, all of this, the entire volume of this consciousness, yes, right now it's crystallized, but just like we have water in the form of ice, and we have water in the form of steam. And so it's all water. This is all consciousness, but it's very strongly crystallized. This is consciousness in the state of ice. But through practice, you can transform this consciousness into a state of plasma, pure energy, and take it with you. There will be more of you. You will be more mobile, you will be more expansive, you will be more aware, you will be more vast. Taking all of this with you. And since my task, my goal is actually to get out. Beyond the primordial, to go into the space where the rishis are present, into the space of Adikali, it would be good to take with me as much of this consciousness as possible, from which the yantra is formed. It benefits me to do this, so I want to leave in exactly this way. Although to leave from here just to fall out of the egg of the universe, I could have already done during my previous visit to that space.
We'll discuss the body's consciousness yantra later. Let's discuss that a little later, but for now you mentioned passions. And here's a very interesting point to consider. You said that one's human earthly passions need to be fully satisfied and fulfilled, because without them, in a very specific way, the spiritual path, still, you will have to leave it behind and return to fulfilling them. But at the same time, a wide variety of traditional teachings say that passions, and many of our ethical and moral frameworks, not just spiritual ones, suggest that our passions should be strictly suppressed, actively avoided, or even completely shut down. What is your personal perspective on this matter? And
what do you think about the followers who take this approach? They age over time, they fall ill, and they die. Their corpses are laid to rest deep within the earth. So,
who really is it that doesn't die?
Those who do not are the ones you don't hear about in the public eye. Those who are in entirely remote and secluded temples or monasteries, and who manage to fully realize the body of light, and legends about them are told for thousands of years. That is the extraordinary effectiveness of their ancient methods.
Wait, let's go back now to the concept of what passion is.
Passion. Look, we have passion as a fundamental need, a clear physical need. We have passion as a concept, a kind of deep psychological idea. And we have passion as an intense energetic process, as a powerful vibration. And so, when a person truly wants something, some specific whim, for example, I want to drive a car myself. Or someone might say, I want to go skydiving. And someone else might say, I just want to hold a stack of money in my hands for it to be mine. Someone might say, I want to win the jackpot at a casino. That's my kind of passion. And until he wins that jackpot, he will suffer and be tormented. Until a person gets behind the wheel and drives that car, he will be dependent on it. He will be completely fixated on it. And trying to break free from this fixation is an incredibly difficult challenge. Yes, you can convince yourself otherwise on a psychological level, but something inside you will still be drawn to it. For example, there are people called gambling addicts, and they try to hold themselves back. But if this gambling addict is a conscious person, well, I can speak about myself in any situation. Yes, right now I'm holding on, I'm just barely managing, but
it's a passion.
Yes, it's a passion. It's all about passion. And the passion for gambling addicts isn't about winning. They don't want to win. They want to experience again and again the feelings that the game gives them. They'll tell you about it themselves. It's not even me saying this. They're the ones who say it. And that's the passion. And when a person says, that's it, never again, not in my life, not for anything, for a month, 2, 3, they relapse again.
So, in the end, for this person who has a gambling addiction, it's a disease. Do they need treatment, or do they simply need to channel their passion? How exactly should this be handled?
It is all about finding a sense of balance, true balance. When we find ourselves taking an extreme approach, either we decide to dive in head first, which inevitably leads to the end, or we go the other way and completely forbid ourselves from enjoying everything life has to offer. In most cases, that's also the end. You can't withstand it. That's when we look for balance. Here we actually get a real chance to play out this game, to get it out of our system. And then there are gambling addicts who say, you just need to realize that it no longer brings you anything. No pleasure, no joy, nothing. Those emotions that were there at the beginning, I just left it behind, I got it out of my system. But it's presented as if he's so strong-willed, like he went through some rehabilitation course. But no, he just got it out of his system. Yes, sometimes the passions are very strong, but sooner or later you get tired of them. Especially if you approach it without being rigid about it, without holding on to some strict personal positions. If you don't start forcing yourself with your own beliefs. When you were a kid, you played with toy soldiers, dolls, I don't know, you played Tetris? At some point, you picked up that Tetris and said, nah, forget it, I don't want to play anymore. At some point, you looked at your bag of toys and thought, no, I'm done. That's it, it's over. At some point, you turned on a cartoon and said, no, I don't want to watch this anymore. That's it, you've satisfied your passion, and we can all satisfy our passions, that's all. There are no restrictions in this, you just need to know how to do it. And so, when you tell someone you can satisfy your passions, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's it, and they go diving right in. No, that's not how it's done. Not like that. You maintain a balance, but a balance between what and what? Between satisfying your passions and spiritual development. That's what the balance is between. And spiritual development is not just empty words. It's when you connect with the divine in your heart, when you study the structure of the universe, its energy, when you earnestly strive to enter the Bardo space, and manage to do so a few times in your lifetime. It's not that easy to achieve. When you see how energies move, when you see them in another person, in other words, you awaken your consciousness and then you say, okay, what do you want? I want something primitive and simple, and that's the problem. I want something that excites me. And you go to satisfy your passion to play with all of this. Again, I'll say, yes, there are certain patterns. For example, you have some kind of passion. Let's say you like hitting people. Well, I want to hit people. All right then, so where can I do this? So that it isn't an act of physical violence against another person, so that it doesn't suppress someone else's will. They tell you, listen, sure, that's not a problem at all. Here you have martial arts, MMA, boxing, and even hockey, where you can fight too. And you can even register on a special website where people gladly hit each other for fun. These are those specific BDSM things, much like what you would find in a professional BDSM club. Go ahead, slap someone if you want, or if you don't want to, someone else will hit you. It's all fine there, no one interferes, and no one's will is being suppressed. That's really something. But what if I want to kill every single person? If I have a deep-seated passion for killing, for cutting, well, maybe even cutting more than killing. Then become a skilled surgeon and satisfy your passion while benefiting other people. Fine, you don't want to cut, you just want to kill. Well, for heaven's sake, become a professional soldier. On our planet, there are always military conflicts going on. They never stop. They just drift around. That's how it is on this planet. Become a mercenary, become a professional, fulfill that passion. And everyone who has a stake in it will thank you. They'll call you a hero, say you're great, you're the best. But if you start acting on that among people who have nothing to do with it, they'll just lock you up in a cage. And they'll lock you up in a cage very quickly too. And your life will be over. A good and happy life. So when you know how to satisfy your passion, and when you're not insane, when you're adequate, you can always find those people and that specific space where it's acceptable, where it's entirely appropriate. But if you're insane, if you're frantic, if you force your own reality onto others, or if you suppress someone else's will, then sooner or later, you'll be stopped and told, listen, stop it, we're also parts of the whole. Originally, what are you doing? That's why, for example, when someone comes into a grocery store and demands to buy a fur coat, they're being unreasonable and they're going to have a lot of problems. But when they go to a fur coat store and say, like, give me the most expensive, the best one, the response is, of course. 2 million, 3 million. And so the ability to properly channel your passions, no matter how crazy or strange they may be, the ability to find those places where it's acceptable, where it's allowed, is crucial. Once again, even if this passion is strictly forbidden within your own country, you can always choose to travel to another nation where it is fully allowed and easily accessible. Go ahead, just do it. There is a welcoming place for every individual on this planet, a specific place for any person, and a home for anyone who seeks it. You just need to find that place. And find it in such a way that you don't interfere with other fragments of consciousness living and pursuing their own passions. So again, to put it in the simplest terms, yes, if I'm sitting and listening to music, well, there's no need for someone next to me to pursue their passion by punching a punching bag with all their might. Go to the gym, hit it as much as you want, no one will say a word to you there.
95% of people don't even realize that within them lies a power that grants access to any possibility, a successful business, strong relationships, health, and self-fulfillment. It allows you to hear your soul and remember your true nature, your divine nature. This power is your energy. When it is blocked, you feel tired and upset. But when your energy flows freely and without obstacles, you are full of strength and capable of achieving any goal. Everyone can feel the movement of energy in their body. Are you ready to see this for yourself right now? I've prepared a practice where, in just 3 minutes, you'll become aware of the state of your energy and be able to activate the inner power that has been blocked for many years. The practice is available for a limited time. Right now, follow the link provided below the video and unlock the incredible source of power within yourself.
You just mentioned consciousness, by the way. So let's smoothly transition to the topic of the body of consciousness. And Yantra. From what I have gathered, Yantra represents one of the primary ultimate goals that the path of Shividi eventually leads to. All of these various spiritual practices are provided to practitioners so that in the end, you can feel and fully activate the Yantra within yourself. However, I would really like you to take a moment to explain in much simpler, more accessible terms what exactly it is. I ask this because if you go and search for the term Yantra on the internet today, you will see a specific and complex geometric pattern of a certain sacred shape shown in the search results. And what it actually is, how it relates to a person, to us, to our actual physical world, remains entirely unclear. The transmission of knowledge about the Yantra significantly disturbs the system. The systems that keep people in a state of ignorance and that keep people in oblivion, i.e. react extremely harshly to any mention of these processes. That's why the people who possess this knowledge mostly keep silent and simply enjoy using it. Since my path to freedom, my path lies beyond the egg of the universe. Devi leads me in such a way that I am compelled to speak about this. This way it will be faster. And that doesn't mean I'll get away with it, but I will continue to do it. At least as long as I have the strength. So the Yantra, what is it? We have a physical body. We know what it means to train our physical body. Well, you are a well-trained person. You know what that is. It's work, it's effort, it's properly following routines and norms. Proper nutrition, training, a schedule, all of this makes the body strong, healthy, and powerful. We have a psyche and it can also be trained. You might be unstable. It's easy to get you emotional, easy to offend you, easy to humiliate you, easy to provoke you into aggression. In other words, someone snaps their fingers and you lose control, and then in the evening you sit and think, what the hell? Why did I do that? Why is it so easy to throw me off balance? And over time, as a person matures, their psyche either becomes more unstable or, on the contrary, stronger. In other words, the psyche can also be trained. And we can say, to some extent, yes, the psyche has a kind of virtual body, which can even be detected by instruments. For example, an electroencephalogram detects the activity of the brain. It detects the arousal of your psyche. An MRI detects the activation of areas in your brain hemispheres. So this body does exist. It can be seen by instruments. We have energy, and our energy is incredibly vast. It can also be trained, and that's exactly what we do in practice. We also have consciousness, that very particle that comes into all of this, that brings it all to life. And this particle also has a body. And this body consists of all possible facets, perceptions, and interactions with the surrounding reality. This is perception at the primordial level, this is perception at the level of the creator. And this potential is embedded in every particle. But it lies dormant, it sleeps, it is disconnected, it is de-energized, it does not function. So when a person encounters a challenging situation in their life, they might say, I'm simply not very good at this isn't for me, or I don't understand this. For example, someone is broke, right? And someone else comes along and says, listen, just buy it cheaper and sell it for more. It really couldn't be any easier than that, could it? To that, the person might say, well, I don't know how to sell, I don't know, I'm completely helpless in that area. But for another person, it's like snap, 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 and there you go, you've already got money. But that person has another area where they are absolutely helpless. Maybe he simply can't and doesn't know how to organize himself in any way. Whatever he earns, it disappears right away. He can't invest it in anything, can't hold on to it at all. You could just say it slips through his fingers. He doesn't have that quality. And so when we look at people, especially at large businesses or corporations, you see people with different qualities coming together. They unite into groups and everything works out for them. One person can't do this no matter what. But why is that? It is because his body and mind are not properly conditioned or trained. Many of his abilities are dormant, closed off. So what is a yantra? A yantra is a way to truly awaken and activate every single one of the qualities that exist. It is quite simply everything that is. If we take the most primitive caste system, right? There, someone is a warrior, someone is a merchant, someone is a sage, a peasant. Let's include that too. These are different forms of consciousness. And a truly remarkable individual can be effective in every aspect of life. He knows how to handle various weapons, how to trade effectively, and is wise in his own right. He can answer any question, and he won't hesitate to go to the field, dig it up, plant something, and make it grow. He is multifaceted. He possesses all these abilities. And generally, such people become leaders. Leaders of huge groups of people, of societies. And as soon as this person disappears, the whole society falls apart. For example, a vivid example of such people is, for instance, Stalin. Yes, everyone who speaks longingly about the Soviet Union, they're not talking about the entire Soviet Union. They're not talking about the Khrushchev-era Soviet Union. They're not talking about the Soviet Union of the last decades. Andropov, Chernenko, or I think that was his name. I don't even remember anymore. No one even remembers who was there after Stalin. But Stalin, that's the very Soviet Union that was supposed to be. And that's exactly what everyone remembers. It was a short period of time. Why? Because first of all, he was a practitioner. He had knowledge. As a matter of fact, he did not actually try to hide it very much. Yes, he got carried away. Yes, he made a lot of mistakes. Yes, he prioritized the state system above his own soul. That is what ultimately destroyed him. In other words, he became completely obsessed with this cartoon. But he was a very strong practitioner, an occult practitioner. He had this knowledge. And he was at the head of this structure, at the head of a huge society of people who were building a beautiful life efficiently and quickly. And then he left, he died, and everyone else turned it all into ruins. Because the people who took his place had their abilities and boundaries severely limited. There was even a real case, if I'm not mistaken, it was Kissinger, but I could be wrong. So when Stalin died, a group of new people came to power. The Americans came, looked at all of this, talked to these new leaders, wished them the best of luck, and left. When they returned home, they said, the people who have now come to power there have put on Stalin's boots and simply drowned in them. This is a completely real situation, a completely real story. That is to say, an individual who truly embodies and possesses these specific qualities can achieve incredible and remarkable things. A person whose yantra of the body of consciousness is asleep. It's switched off, de-energized, very narrowly manifested. He simply can't do it in any way. No matter how much I wanted to, there was a real case, an absolutely real case. A woman from a corporation came to me. A serious, large Russian corporation, and she was not satisfied with her status in this corporation. She wanted more. She wanted to reach the top levels. We're talking about the management team, that is, the top executives. And she didn't understand how to break through to that level. She didn't possess the qualities needed for someone aspiring to become a top executive. We trained together, I passed on my knowledge to her, I initiated her into this knowledge, I awakened her in the mind. When it comes to initiation, when you're not just told that there's a yantra, there's a mantra, go ahead and recite it. That's not the same thing. When initiation takes place, that is, as I awaken my own Shakti through resonance by the principle of resonance, I awaken the Shakti in the person who is just entering into all of this. And then they gain the ability to move forward on their own. If no one has awakened these Shaktis in them, they simply won't have the strength to do it themselves. That's the essence of initiation. It's not just some Indian guy putting a dot on your forehead. That's not initiation. That's just clowning around, plain and simple, or giving you some special candy. That's not initiation either. Initiation is when someone within your field triggers certain energetic processes in you according to the principles of resonance. This is done on the level of energy, on the level of consciousness, and according to the principle of I can, I know how. That's it. And now you're just going to absorb all of this. That's exactly how I learned as well, absolutely the same way. And it's one thing when Ashan said, we will have a practice of initiation into the yantra, and it's a completely different thing when these practices actually began. I was like, so that's what this is. When it started to rise up inside me like that, I thought, here it is, that's it, I can feel it, I can grab onto it. But while it was de-energized in me, I was like, oh well, the yantra, but where is it? Around me. I don't understand, I don't feel it.
I want to ask a question right away. So, do you see yantras in other people?
If I need to.
For example, you mentioned Stalin's yantra, and what can you say about Putin's yantra?
To say something, no. He is leaving the country on a one-way journey abroad, completely without a return ticket. Listen, he is also a very determined and strong person. He is a man constantly watched over and protected by a powerful force that is deeply immersed within his very being. He's a very multifaceted person. His yantra is in perfect order. He
is a practitioner?
I cannot say for certain right now. But an average, everyday person doesn't have such specialized skills. So most likely in some way, he was in the KGB. There were probably old specialists in the KGB who could still pass on this knowledge. They combed through everything just like Anna Nerba did in her time, searching the whole world with the goal of finding this knowledge, extracting it from there. And the KGB did the same thing. And the American intelligence and MI6, they were all doing the same thing. They were searching for artifacts, searching for knowledge, searching for texts, searching for the bearers of this knowledge. That's why I assume that someone trained him. And again, this is a real story when they went into the forest, into the caves to Shoigu, who is also, Mom dear, what a practitioner. And they did something. And this is what was published. I am not making this up. I am not sitting here. That is, they definitely possess this knowledge, some kind of it, techniques. Well, that's the most I can say because I don't know who trained them.
Can we say that, in principle, there is a direct correlation? Meanwhile, to what extent is a person's Shianta truly activated? To what extent is a person deeply versed and experienced, so to speak, in these practices? And what kind of influence does this person have on the world, on reality, and on history?
Of course. These are obvious things. Look, here's the thing. Elon Musk is also not the least of people in terms of practice, in terms of knowledge. He has established several different corporations. Now try putting some random factory worker in his place. What will happen? Everything will collapse. I can tell you right away what will happen.
But that doesn't directly mean that he is a practitioner. He might just be well-educated, highly talented, and hard-working.
That's not enough. That's insufficient. You won't have enough time, even if you train yourself mentally and physically, to reach such capabilities. There just won't be enough time. It takes too long. Way too long. Just training your body alone takes several years of your life. Training your medical mind takes another 8 or even 9 long years. So how long does it actually take to train doctors? They study for at least 6 years. At least that's how it used to be. Or maybe it's different now and something has changed for those given the right to work with other people's bodies. Psychiatrists who were given the right to work with another person's mind. There's a huge amount of time that a person spends just learning. They study every single aspect of this. No, for us, energy is our primary focus. If you try to develop energetically through the physical, you simply will not have enough time to reach that kind of work. That approach exists, but we live too short a life, and that's an unavoidable and obvious fact. People who sit there in the lotus position, of course, have an effect on their energy. They definitely do. But take Ramana Maharshi, for example. He spent his whole life sitting in the lotus position, and in the end, his tendons atrophied. He became almost like a corpse. He didn't have enough time. When a person progresses through knowledge at the level of Yantra, again, I didn't make this up myself. I was taught by a person who is a bearer of the most ancient tradition, Sri Vidya. A tradition that is not written down anywhere, one that is passed only from master to disciple. And these practices, this knowledge, if you start shouting about them thoughtlessly at every step, the system will simply try to destroy you, because it is not in its interest for people to become free. It is not in its interest for the original particles to awaken. It is highly beneficial and quite advantageous to keep all of this hidden in complete ignorance within this complex game, and in these constant endless distractions of our daily lives that simply serve to waste your precious time and energy.
An awakened person won't give away their energy and
attention for nothing? Of course. Neither energy nor consciousness. They will direct all of it toward fulfilling their own passions. And no one likes it when someone else fulfills their passions while you can't do the same. That's a big conflict, a big game. And on the one hand, those who they deliberately keep you in deep ignorance, in foolishness, in your own passion, in a life of debauchery, or in anything else that is completely unbalanced. What is it that you absolutely must not start with? This is balanced out by people who have learned something, mastered something, reached something. And they use it just in that way. They use it all the time. Do you really seriously believe that if a person has a button in their hands called money, will he begin by offering every single person the chance to press it? No, he will simply sit right there and press it himself. This button is a perfect analogy for all of the knowledge and practices that I demonstrate. I know a specific button called the Sri Yantra. If I didn't have the goal of escaping from this confined place, if I didn't have the goal of reaching the space where the eternal rishis reside at whom, you can read about them too, although there is only a very limited amount of information available. As I told Krendekam before, why would I put myself at risk? I would just use this and continue to accumulate wealth for myself. With electronics, there are opportunities to earn money again now. I still remember with perfect clarity exactly how to work with a transistor, how to connect a driver to it, and how to send a pulse there. I remember everything from the generator, but my intention is not tied to this specific moment. My intention is not tied to the universe that Brahman created. My intention is to break free from this universe. And Devi says, well, your path is the shortest, so that's the path I'm following.
Let's get back to the concept of the Shayantra. Still, if you search on the internet, you'll see a schematic geometric drawing.
It's just a symbol.
It's just a symbol. We are attracted. This is
just a top view. Well, you see, that is
this configuration itself. It in some way, it exists spatially.
No. Now you and I are about to dive into some kind of cartoons again. So, look, a yantra is a body on the level of consciousness. From this body, from its configuration, energy is born. From this energy, the psyche and personality are born. From this personality, the physical body is born. These are all interconnected systems, a holistic, absolutely unified system. Any change in configuration at the level of consciousness is reflected right away also in the physical body. Any Shakti Devi that is manifested as part of your yantra is also manifested somewhere on the level of your physical body, on the level of your psyche. That is, certain psychological qualities that you didn't have before suddenly appear within you. Why? Because you activated it there. Some abilities of your physical body that you didn't have before suddenly appear. Why? Because you activated it as well. You know, at one time I used to draw an analogy with a hologram. Our physical body is like a hologram. But what is a yantra? A yantra is the complex arrangement of mirrors that carefully construct this hologram. And if some of these mirrors aren't illuminated by light bulbs, then part of this hologram simply doesn't exist. But if all the mirrors are illuminated everywhere, you get this whole complete hologram. Why? Because our physical body, our energy, is the primary source of our existence. Physics, by its very nature, in the act of creation, is the very last form of manifestation, of the degradation of consciousness. So physics is not valued on the level of global processes. It's only here that we're fighting over physics. It's only here that we obsess about physics. Oh, it's the most valuable thing. But no, for reality, it's nothing at all. It's just nonsense. Yes, it's a part of you, but this part of you is not important for reality. That's why when a person sincerely tries to save their physical body while completely disregarding their soul, nothing works out. They end up dying anyway. But as soon as a person shifts their focus to saving the connection with their soul, suddenly the physical body quickly gets back in order, heals, regenerates, and everything turns out well for them. That's how it works according to the logic of creation, not the logic of humans. In humans, everything is very distorted. So, how do we define consciousness? It's your awareness, your ability to simply observe the world around you, to be conscious. Imagine there are 10 people standing, and one of them is deliberately deceiving everyone else. You look at the one who is deceiving and you see that he is lying. Well, it's obvious, but he's lying. But look at the rest of the people. They believe him, they don't see that he's lying. You see that they don't see, and at the same time you see both how you perceive it and how you feel it, because your consciousness is more aware, more flexible, more multifaceted. It notices aspects that other consciousnesses simply don't see. They filter them out, they can't perceive them. This is a primitive situation, but in our case, energies are manifested. Forces, energies. Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Devi, Shri, Miloletni. And when you start to see these energies, when the quality of your consciousness, the facets of your consciousness are sufficient to perceive all of this, your spectrum of perception expands and you perceive reality as it truly is. And your human logic, well, that's it. It ceases to exist because it no longer corresponds to reality. A person can spend their whole life defending the laws of physics, defending their own positions, and then end up with a fatal illness and die. Why? After all, he was a good person all his life. He did everything right all his life. So why did he die like that? The blockage simply rotted away because once again his sense of being right did not correspond to the way everything actually moves in reality. And we very often stumble over this, over our own sense of being right. And so our consciousness doesn't allow us to let go of all this.
And what exactly does the powerful activation of these Shakti Shri Yantras provide for us on Shakti? These are the little triangles like...
It's not really about the shape, right? You were asking. Well, look, yes, to some extent. You could certainly say that, well, yes, it is almost as if you are looking down at it from high above and you see this intricate symbol. But in that very same way, I could easily draw a little spiral just by letting a pencil go across the paper. This is a vast galaxy. And you look at these, they're 4 little swirls like this, that's a galaxy. Okay. But the fact that there are quasars there, that there are planets, that there's a black hole, that it's all moving, that it's measured in light years across, it's just 4 little swirls. It's the same with amber. You see this geometry, right? And you're like, well, that's a top view. Well, fine, I drew you a galaxy, this is the top view. But that doesn't reflect the essence at all. A yantra is a multifaceted, multidimensional structure that is reflected in physics, in the psyche, in energy, and in itself. It is manifested around your deity, in your heart, around your soul. Your soul is actually this very structure. It is manifested there much more profoundly than anything happening around you. This is a structure that is perfectly manifested in the primordial one, in Shiva. So you can come up, look at Shiva and say, aha, so that's what it looks like in perfection. Compare it to your own and think, why did I even come here? Why did I even show up? I still have so much to practice, so much to awaken. And these little triangles, these petals, there are thousands of them. And they are mobile, they spin, and everything interacts with each other. Everything flows in and out, everything spins, connects, disconnects, falls asleep and awakens. All of this moves in every possible direction. It shines, it burns. Around all of this, movement moves within movement. It's an incredible process when you immerse yourself in it. It's indescribable in words, but if I need to convey this knowledge to someone, to a person like this, I have to simplify it to the most basic level. So look, here is a symbol. This symbol at least allows your perception to latch onto something, to give you an idea of where you should even be looking. That is to say, if I just tell you these thoughts, well, a yantra is an absolutely incredible phenomenon, something truly inexpressible. Try to see, but where should you even look? At least with the transmission of the yantra, it is conveyed to a very specific area. You look here, this area is called this. You look there, that area is called that. At that very moment, in my own yantra, I ignite these processes, they flare up, and because of this, since we are all fundamentally alike, we enter into resonance with each other. They also begin to awaken in you, they also start to vibrate within you, and it becomes noticeable. It's like I feel something about 3 meters away from where he is. And your attention starts to pick up on something there, something fleeting, like you're kind of, yeah. And now you can latch onto it, catch it. I'm telling you, everything's great. I see that you see it. Now keep cultivating it further. And this little sprout, it broke through the ground just like that. But for now, the sprout hasn't really done anything yet. And later, something incredible will grow from it, something incredible in form. Again, yantras will appear around you. These yantras will start to form. These multidimensional patterns, they'll be everywhere, above you, below you, and even beneath you. From these patterns, a certain structure, a fractal, will be assembled, and this fractal will be similar. At first, much of it will be powerless. In many places, it will be without energy, dotted, lifeless. All of this will need to be brought to life, awakened, infused with your consciousness and connected to energy, to electricity. All of this must ignite within you and begin to connect, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here, he says. So when a person immerses themselves in these processes, figuratively speaking you could say, but here it's more like a little triangle, and these are like flower petals, or they rise up like flames, like some kind of fire. But I see it more like a gas burner, you know, with all those different shades. At first you start to find some analogies, something abstract and similar, but then you look at it, let's say a little triangle, and realize it's not really a triangle. So what's buzzing here? And it's an entire yantra. And from these multiple yantras, Shakti Devi, each Shakti Devi is a yantra, makes up the Shri yantra. The term Shri refers to a fully comprehensive and holistic yantra, like the original, the ultimate, and absolute yantra. And when you begin to awaken it by its regions, what happens during initiation into this process? When it starts to manifest in you, you keep refining and polishing it, refining it. This is a lifelong practice, and no matter how much you invest in it, no matter how much you refine it, you will always see even more indescribable, even more multifaceted, instantaneous processes filling your entire perception. In addition to the transmission itself, the initiation itself, there are also higher level practices. There are thousands of names of Lolita, and this is something I am still doing on my own for now. For now, I am refining this within myself, cultivating mastery. In this matter, I haven't even started to talk about it yet, or about this. But the people who have already received the initiation, who are currently working with their yantras, sooner or later I will gather everyone and say, guys, the time has come to truly become adults, to practice even deeper qualities. If a person does not see their yantras, if they do not awaken, then there is nothing for them to practice. That is why there are levels 1, 2, and 3. There are mantras that help and simplify every aspect of this. There are passions that will distract you, pull you away, and make you waste time on who knows what kind of things. It's all a single unified system. If you try to write it all down, honestly, you'll probably die before you finish. Its scope is truly incredible. When it's your skill, when it's your mastery, you don't need to write anything down. You pull all this from yourself.
So you built such a system where you teach, right? First level, then second, third, and then I
didn't create it. It was created long before me. I just showed it to you right now. So then you
translated it, so to speak, into a clear modern
language. I adapted it for today, yes. Because the teaching methods that were used in the temple are not really effective anymore these days. And because the way people think and live continues to evolve, their mentality changes and their core value systems change over time. And in order to effectively convey information to others, yes, I can't just say to a person like, look, for the next 6 long years ahead, yes, you will remain motionless and still in the temple and practice every single thing I tell you. Damn, that's just not going to work for me. I have a wife to care for, children to raise, and a job, so I must adapt this entire system to the difficult realities of this life. That is exactly how these steps appear, and that's how the whole sequence comes about. It's all the same things I used to do, just carefully adapted for today. That's it. The fundamental essence doesn't change. It never truly changes. Just as it was 20 years ago, so it is now.
Friends, you can read more about Anton's system in the description below. All the relevant links will be provided there, so you can easily follow them and take a closer look. Anton, in the meantime, could you please tell us now, what is the main difference between a person with an activated Yantra and one without it?
In their abilities.
In their abilities. It's interesting to hear about the Kithi and their abilities.
Well, once again, let me finish the story about one of the practitioners who wanted to get into the top ranks. But what she lacked was quality. She was quite accomplished, and she honestly told me, I see that I can't keep up. I can't catch up with these people. They're faster, they're better, they're more still, as if they're in a different place. So we did the practice. I shared all of this important knowledge about Yantra, and even now, after some time has passed, she still makes the effort to come and see me. She would come, and we would carefully polish every single detail. We would train, we would practice, and at some point, she was finally accepted into those exclusive circles, and they said, well, that's it, you're with us now. It's really that simple, just like that, and she was let in. Why? Because her configuration became similar to those people. And they saw her as one of their own. They identified her as a worthy person. That's how it works. And
so, tell me, please, do you think it would make sense? She could have taken a different path, right, again, to solve it? From the point of view of physics, all these questions.
No chance. Absolutely no chance.
Wasn't there time?
Of course. How are you going to awaken your Shakti Devi having these stumps for hands? You can't even touch her. She's 3 meters away from you. How? What do you need to do with your physical body? Spit in that direction or something? Well, how? It's way too far between the form, between the body of consciousness and the physical body. There are several universes between them. You're not even in the same galaxy. That's a colossal difference. And if that's your task, you'd better practice on the level of consciousness if you truly want to awaken Yantruk. That opens up your abilities, all of them. You ask, what are superpowers? Superpowers, well, you could call them that. But really, they're just your abilities. They become, yesterday you didn't have them, today you do. Just yesterday you were hesitating, didn't understand, got tired, couldn't handle it, and today, bam, you're ready, everything is finally in perfect order. So it doesn't mean that you're sitting in the lotus position and people are throwing huge wads of cash at your cat. No, not at all. It means that the actions you take suddenly and sharply become effective and you start to be guided. People listen to you, they believe you, they fully trust you, they follow you, and they deeply accept you as one of their own. In other words, you get the green light everywhere, even though from a physical or material standpoint, you haven't changed at all. So just like you were Anton before you woke up in the morning, still Anton. Just like you were a handyman at the restaurant, you remain a handyman at the restaurant. And suddenly people are offering you things, inviting you, giving you opportunities and options, trusting you with money, trusting you with equipment. Let's go, you're radiating this sense of possibility, you're radiating impeccability, and other people respond to that. And then you simply choose where you want to go, what you want to do, how to make it all happen, how you will move forward. And
so do you really think that every single person out there, let's say, actually needs to realize their own Yantra? And what would happen if everyone on Earth did this?
You know, these are actually stories from long ago. A certain plane? What if everyone became presidents? Imagine what would happen if everyone stopped having children, right? Our reality isn't like that. First of all, it is constructed in a very harmonious way. Secondly, our reality has a lot of systems that control humanity, literally control it, constantly telling you what you should be doing. There are many systems that actually take away your right to will, your right to choose. This happens technically and it happens energetically. I've said before, we have this domain of will here. There's this phrase, you know, you sold your soul, but in reality, it's not your soul. You can't sell your soul. You can't sell it. It doesn't belong to you. What you can sell is what actually belongs to you, your will. And people really, even physically, in the area of their abdomen, have this divine spark, and it goes into some system and it stays there. It's still yours, but it's in that system. It's like making a deposit in a bank. The money is supposedly yours, but just try to take it out. You can't. Try to spend it. You won't be able to. And why is that? Because you signed a contract somewhere that you can't withdraw this deposit before it's time. It's the same with your will. You gave it away, and now you can't apply it anymore. You can't use it anymore. It seems like it's yours, but the system is the one using it. That's why, yes, it won't happen like that. It won't happen. It just won't happen by itself. We can philosophize about this for a long time, but it just won't happen that way. The real obvious reality is that only a handful of people possess this knowledge. And of those who do possess this knowledge, even fewer are willing to talk about it. That's the obvious reality. And I ended up in this system. Ashan didn't just say, "Come on, Anton, I'll tell you everything." That's not at all. He'd say, "Get lost. I'm not telling you anything. You're not a student." Even after I became a student, I'd ask, "Ashan, give me the next mantra." He'd say, "No way, I won't give it to you. You're not ready yet. You haven't mastered this. You haven't mastered that." Well, come on. That's just nonsense. It's nothing. Do you know how to do it? Have you done it maybe once, right? No, you haven't. No, and that's it.
You mentioned the word soul, and there's a lot of informational layering there as well. Let's set the record straight from the perspective of Shidi. What is spirit? What is soul? And what specific locations do these profound concepts occupy within our human body?
First, we need to determine from which tradition we are pulling these terms. Let's say we're taking them from Christianity. What is spirit? What is soul? But we could also take this from Esotericism. What is spirit? What is soul? And then we'll just be arguing about nothing. I'll tell you how I see it. We have a specific area located very close to the center of our chest. It is situated approximately at the same level as the human heart. If we consider our actual physical heart, it is positioned roughly in the very middle of our real physical heart. This specific spot corresponds directly to the center of our physical heart. That is, it's shifted just a little bit. This point is an area called Bindu. There is a Bindu in the heart. When a person truly immerses themselves deep within this Bindu, they gain the spiritual perception of something divine. We call this Ishtadevi or Ishtadeva. That is, it is a being, a deity which has gender characteristics, but these gender characteristics are not of the physical body, but rather of energy. That is either Shiva or Shakti, or masculine energies or feminine energies. But here, under no circumstances, should one use a human understanding. That is, physical gender characteristics and energetic gender characteristics are not the same thing. In any physical body, there are both Shiva energies and Shakti energies. For example, I am a man, I have the physical traits of a male body, but within me there is both Shakti and Shiva. Let's take a woman. She has all the female gender characteristics, but within her there is both Shiva and Shakti. So this is a slightly different kind of division. So when I immerse myself into this point called Bindu in the heart, I begin to see the layers. The first layer is Devi or Deva. If I am in a male body, my deity has a Devi, that is a female body. So roughly speaking, if I am a more manifest ray of intention, then in my soul, in my heart, there will also be a more manifest one. A vortex of Shakti, that is, it's a way energy moves, either in a straight line or in a spiral. That's all. The straight line energies are masculine, Shiva energies. The spiral ones are the energy of Shakti, Devi, the deity. And so I immerse my heart deeply into the silence. I see the first layer. This is the true form of my own soul. This is my own deity. My own deity also has a heart, and in that heart there is also a deity. This is the next layer of the soul. And that deity also has a heart, also a layer, and at some point it continues infinitely. Diving into these multi-layered structures, this configuration of masculine and feminine resembling physical bodies, as if someone is sitting there. It all appears humanoid. There are already beings sitting there. You perceive them. It's just like a world of certain geometric forms. And in any geometric form of energy, there is also a bindu, a core, in which the geometric form of energy is manifested. Fractality begins. This fractality goes on and on and on. And at a certain level, the soul of all humanity is one and the same. That is to say, at a certain deep level of our own soul, in this sacred space within the heart, we can see, truly see that absolutely all people are one single unified being. All of humanity shares a single soul. But that's at that particular level. At lower levels, you really see that it's just your soul and that's it. There's no one else there. So it's a multi-layered structure like this, through which you can keep moving further. So you've seen that all of humanity is one. But does this level have even more levels? It does. Then you can keep delving further with your consciousness, exploring with your perception. At some point you reach Brahma himself, Brahman, you get to his table, and at that moment you see that you and Brahman are one and the same being. It's just like how my brain and the toenail on my foot are one and the same being, but no one cuts off and throws away the brain, while we do cut off and throw away the toenail. That's why these bodies, these energetic components, their flow gets cut off and thrown away. When someone cuts you off, that's really not a good thing. You stop being a part of this being. For example, if I take a hair right now, pull it out and throw it away, that hair has stopped being a part of me. And that's what happens. You move through the layers of the soul and suddenly you see that you are, Brahma is an absolutely whole, unified structure. So you start to wonder, wait, but Brahma also has a heart. And yes, he also has this bindu, and you keep moving further, more layers, more levels. You see Vishnu, you keep moving further, more layers, more levels. You see Ardhanarishvara, and still you don't stop, you see the primordial one. And at that moment you realize, you become aware, wow, that's incredible. Yes, there is a multiplicity of these structures. Yes, a whole bunch of these levels. But I am a part of the primordial one. Yes, I am. Somewhere there at the very end, but I am a part of it. In this structure, it enters my heart. This is the soul. This is the very mechanism that makes us a part of the primordial one. But we can, by engaging in specific reactions, by consciously manifesting particular vibrations and certain states, effectively sever this connection, detach ourselves from this flow, and no longer be an integral part of the primordial one. Just be a fragment that will fall into the first gates and wait until everything comes together again. A small, flawed, constrained little piece of amber, not a white amber, just some kind of amber. This is, to put it briefly, my entire tradition says that talking about this is pointless. My entire tradition says that you should make an effort not to listen to me as I tell you about it, but to train yourself to experience it. Train yourself to truly perceive it. Ashan has answered this question for me many times. And not just for me. We have pestered him about it many times. With these layers. Then my daily practices, my personal practices, and my unique abilities allowed me to fully experience a state of deep immersion along this multi-layered path. After that, I had no more questions. And so when a person sets out to experience this, to learn it, they can make it in time. They will have enough time. But when they first need to listen carefully, then contemplate the information, then to imagine something of their own, then try to confirm or refute it through others, various talking heads and all sorts of different people. You waste your time on absolutely nothing. It's complete and utter emptiness. It's a total zero in the end. When you find this within yourself, when you experience it, when people simply touch the first layer of their soul, tears come to their eyes. They feel emotions they've never experienced in their lives, not even toward their dearest and closest ones. It's something truly intimate, truly sacred. It's something we always carry within ourselves. It's a need that we cannot fulfill in any way through the external world. Yes, sometimes people try to fulfill this need in the external world, but they never succeed, because it's impossible to do so. Only there can you fulfill this need, by touching the first layer of your soul with your perception. But that's not all. You can keep moving deeper and reach the very origin, becoming aware of yourself as a completely unified structure, to experience all of this. And then you will never be the same again. Then you will no longer be cruel. You will no longer be hateful. You will no longer be rejecting. You will no longer be the kind of person who says, here I am and there is something else out there, this crappy reality that supposedly needs to be completely remade. No, you see absolute wholeness, unity, and harmony. You simply satisfy your passions with those who share the same passions. You play games with those who want to play those games. You find your own place in the space where you don't bother anyone. You continue to journey forward with those specific people who possess the exact same goals and intentions as you. But sometimes when you share this deep knowledge with a much larger audience, people who didn't seek you out themselves but simply happened to catch a glimpse of it by chance, the established system intervenes and says, hey, who exactly do you think you are? This is my cow and I'm the one who milks it. And at that moment, you have to be a master, to be worthy, to be strong enough to say, well, maybe the cow is yours, but she's about to get her freedom back. And it's precisely because of this very reason that the knowledge, the ancient tradition I'm talking about now, becomes a secret. Not every practitioner is truly ready to put their own head on the line. They are not always ready to even talk about this, to teach others, and to awaken another person's energy field with your own presence.
You spoke about the soul, but what is spirit and what's the difference?
Spirit, well, you could say it's a certain powerful force that maintains balance and ensures that everything is perfectly harmonious. For example, this specific being wants to kill, and this other being simply needs to die. And so spirit brings them together in the space between them. One satisfies one thing, the other fulfills something else. For example, one person wants to sell, another wants to buy. So the space brings them together so that this can happen. Essentially, each of us is a conduit of spirit for one another. Someone has become so absorbed in breaking their connection with their soul that they need someone to come up and hit them over the head. And someone is just burning with anger, they really want to hit someone. And the spirit brings them together in space. The one who wants to hit someone carries out the action. And the one hit on the head needed to be urgently distracted because he was suddenly starting to die. He suddenly began to sink into matter, breaking away from his soul. He needs to be distracted somehow. The spirit is that force, that structure, which maintains this harmony and balance. Yes, right now someone will say, oh, you're talking about something strange, but you guys, you're just defending your flesh again. You're defending your physical body. In the value system of the universe, it ranks very low.
But each of us has our own spirit.
No. The spirit is a part of Brahma, a part of the creator, a part of the architect. It is the force that watches over everyone. It is one and the same.
What are you actually transmitting? The method, or, as you mentioned, the state?
Everything at once, as a whole. You
received this knowledge in person. Is it possible to transmit it as well, through a screen, in a recording, and so on?
I also received it not in person. There were Skype broadcasts. Chance taught me that.
So that means there won't be any effect?
Listen, well, I can't say that it's absolutely the same, exactly one-to-one. Of course, when a person is next to me, the effectiveness is at its maximum. But I can't say that it drops drastically or dramatically. No, our fields still intersect in the same way. You can still pick up these settings from me. All of this is still just as accessible for energy work. It's not just outside of space, it's even outside of time. Energy. And sometimes people change their past through their own energy. That's a separate topic for discussion, but it's real. It really can be done. So here the main factor is that when a person is next to me, their attention, it's much easier to concentrate on all these processes. When a person is watching a live stream, it's easier to distract them. They themselves get distracted more easily. You know, something bangs, someone walks into the room, something happens with the stream, maybe it starts lagging. It's easier to get distracted, reducing effectiveness. But sitting here together, you can't get distracted. If you drift, I'll just ask, Artyom, where are you? It boosts effectiveness, and our fields still intersect as before. For fields, distance is irrelevant.
Your program has 3 levels. Practical energy work, transcendental speed, and the pillar of fire. This entire spiritual system is called the power of consciousness. After a person has successfully completed these 3 levels, then they are ready to receive the transmission of the Yantra to activate their own Yantra. Is that a correct understanding?
We pass by institutes and schools mostly without gaining any benefits from that process. We don't do that. We study this and use it throughout our entire lives. The practices given in the first course don't go anywhere, and in the second course they don't disappear, nor do they in the third course. Yes, they don't become outdated or irrelevant. They become deeper, increasingly multidimensional in nature and more complex for a beginner. But it's still the same energies, the same processes, even the very same fundamental fingertips. They remain until the very end. Here you find your strength, Kali, you find it at your fingertips, and if you don't, it's something you haven't gone through. This is what becomes an inseparable part of your life. This is who you are.
Could you please explain to me why a second and even a third level are needed, if in fact in the first level you give all the theoretical and practical parts? Well, as everyone usually does in their practice, why can't you immediately, right after the first level, proceed to the activation of the sacred?
Because the activation of Sri Andrei requires an incredible amount of resources. It requires a very pure configuration. It requires... Well, you know, it's like a competition at school during a PE class and the Olympic Games. So the Yantra is like the Olympic Games, and you have to prepare for them. The initial practices, well, that's like PE at school. That is, you start training yourself. You train yourself and you cultivate your skill in order to be able to perceive at the level of consciousness. It's not something that happens at the snap of your fingers. And when you train, you start to wonder, can I do more? Can I be more effective, faster, more active? Then I say, yes, there are stages where after receiving your first knowledge in the first course, after gaining knowledge in the practical energy course, you begin to transform yourself with this knowledge. You stop resembling those like yourself. You change your energetic configuration. To some extent, you no longer even remain a human being from the energetic point of view. You shed your human form, yourself. You begin to lay claim to a completely different form of existence here. You begin to restore to yourself a likeness of the original state. You start to shed from yourself these stages of degradation. You set your energy's time in reverse. It's the same as with water. Having frozen into ice, it slowly begins to melt and becomes liquid again, then vapor, and eventually plasma. If we continue to follow this specific analogy. And so, when a person has fully mastered the essential skills of using their own energy, when their energy is completely clear and entirely free to them, when they can easily perceive it, when they can easily control it, when they see it in other people, when they see how all of this works, they think, I want to stop being like everyone else, I want to become someone more perfect. And then comes the second stage, which removes part of the degradation, part of the crystallization from them. They shed the cocoon. The cocoon is the structure of a human being, it is not the structure of a free being. They reclaim for themselves this pure state. Without all of this, in short, they stop being a Kinder Surprise in this chocolate wrapper. They crawl out of all of this, are born as if from an egg, like a bird is born. It's the same thing, and there's no need to worry about shedding your cocoon. Children up to about 3 or 5 years old live without a cocoon. Everything is fine with them. We can live without a cocoon. It's only later that we wrap ourselves up in it, like a mummy wrapped in cloth. In other words, it's actually a terrible sight. We just don't realize it. But here you see it and you no longer want to stay in it, and there is a technique that allows you to shed it.
About this, you second body for the second stage.
And you shed this cocoon using the skills you acquired in the first course. If you don't have these skills, how are you going to shed it? Snapping your fingers in the air won't help. Not even a barbell bar will help if you try swinging it around. So you use the skills you've acquired, and at some point you say, listen, I want to be more powerful so that it drives me forward and never stops me at all. There is a technique, there is a technology. This technology is used so that you have the resources for entering into the perception of your yantra. You can use it to realize all your passionate intentions. There they know how to build factories, destroy factories, create their own states, send checks by mail. No matter how I direct it, everything is still stuck in these cycles of trying things on. You can't spend it, it can't run out, because our world is whole, it's self-contained, looping back on itself. And no matter how much energy you channel through yourself, just as much will flow into you. The more you channel, the more and more comes into you. And the only question is how much you can actually handle, how much of this energy you can channel through yourself. And so when you hit this configuration where your ability to channel energy through yourself is limited, it's like you've hit a wall, and that's it. Nothing more will go through. It's like a small tube through which you're trying to push a lot of water, but it just won't go through. The tube even starts to break down. You begin to apply the next transformation. The transformation into a pillar of fire. This is when your energy centers, your chakras, merge into a whole, not just as points, but they unite into a single integrated structure. And then your capacity to channel energy becomes essentially unlimited. And already in this configuration, in this unlimited configuration, you control where you direct all this power. For example, I direct it towards withstanding the onslaught of systems. It helps me endure. I direct it towards awakening energy in other people. Do you think other practitioners haven't tried teaching? They have tried. And there were some particularly bold ones who completed the first course, absorbed everything, thinking, I can do anything. They went to teach, and a few weeks later they came back. I asked how it went. They said, we don't know how you handle this. How? With just one person, they say, I'm already half dead, I just can't do it, I don't have enough strength. People say you meet hundreds and stay energetic without getting tired. How do you do it? I say, well, how? Well, I share everything, I show everything, everything is open. So second, third course, transform yourself. And when people reach the third course, I ask, so are you teaching now? They tell me, I'd rather spend it on this or that or go somewhere else. I don't want to teach, that's it, I'm not interested in it anymore. In other words, they just start enjoying this surge of energy that opens up within them. They start their own businesses, launch their own projects, build things, they have enough energy for everything. and they continue to dive deeper into the knowledge of their true nature. Some of them say, listen, I want to, come on, show me, let's awaken together, dedicate all of this to me. I say, sure, no problem for you, because you have the resources, you have the capability. All of this is so that it can start working and so that you can perceive it. For us, the act of perception takes up a lot of energy. Well, it's the same thing, like when you have physical exertion, right? You're tired, but overall it's fine. There's even a certain pleasantness to it. Try, for example, something like an algebra or trigonometry problem, go ahead and solve it. Your brain will just melt after 40 minutes and that's it. You'll be completely drained. That is, when we maintain concentration, it really exhausts us. And there needs to be a special configuration in the form of a pillar of fire. Jivan Mukti is also such a form of existence, twice born. If we speak traditionally, how does it sound in the traditional sense? So if you look at a person, it's like a fiery stream. If we say, in Sanskrit, this is called Jivan Mukti. So again, this isn't just made up out of thin air. And there are only a handful of people on our planet who have managed to realize this configuration. I'm showing the technology of how to do this, guaranteed, because I've tested it. It really works. People who practiced with me have shown me results. I would just watch their field, how it would flare up. I was like, wow. There was one more person who now mastered this technique.
How can a person understand that they need this, and for someone else, it's definitely not necessary?
It is impossible to fully understand. The brain surrenders its authority when we enter the realm of consciousness. It's internal, it's something intimate, something sacred. It's beyond comprehension. You just feel what it is. But when I would just come to practice, we would be able to look at our internal channels and we would feel the subtle energies flowing there. At some point, Ashan Nori said, well, on such and such a date I will be transmitting. The knowledge was coming and I had no idea. So, what is this phrase, Sri Yantra, even about? That word didn't exist in my vocabulary, but he was saying it. I was like, I have to get there. I wasn't even his student, but I just knew I had to get there. I didn't know what it was, I didn't know why, how it would benefit me, what it would give me. Yes, I didn't know. It was just something inside. It was like something pricked me, like it hooked me on all of this. I realized that I had no chance of dodging it. None at all. It's this lack of understanding. It's when something touches your soul. It's when your whole being is just pierced by a single thought. My God, I don't know what this is, but I know it's what I need. It's simply this knowledge from nowhere, and I still remember my words to this day. When he finished transmitting this practice, it lasted several days, 9 days. The transmission of this practice came to an end. It wasn't that they didn't come. Yeah, there with the shoulder blades and Dad the Joker, just blood, and then, well, go on, get out of here, 9 days. Our husband showed us every single shape of the hat, and there were more than 100. And so, when he finally finished, this whole field was right there before us. I was sitting right here watching him very closely, and I saw this field. I saw this entire impressive structure. And then I turned to him and said, Ashan, today I have finally found exactly what I had been searching for all this time. I didn't know what I was looking for. It was some kind of inner need. I was searching for it in his head, and he decided to joke with me, saying, yeah, will you tell me about it? I said, well, I'm an anthroposopher, and he goes, oh, I know that too. That's it. From that day on, I haven't searched for anything else. Since that day, I no longer read piles of literature. I don't run around like a madman all over the planet anymore, hoping someone will tell me something new. No, that's it. I am completely satisfied. I have truly felt these Shakti Devis. I embraced each of my Shaktis, let her inside my body. That's it. I don't need anything else. I saw that this is something that now just needs to be cultivated, and cultivated. I don't need to search for anything anymore. So your question, how to understand, for me sounds, it's like, why does the sun rise above the horizon? For some reason it rises. How do you understand that it's rising? And I honestly don't know how to describe it. No, those aren't the right words that take part in this complex process. It is something absolutely and deeply sensual. You don't simply understand it with your mind, you feel it with your soul, and it completely permeates every part of you. It is just everywhere around us, even in the space where your physical body ends, I can still feel it vibrating. That right here it is, yes, right here it is, and in the end, it doesn't even matter what it is called or how we try to define it. You can clearly see exactly why this happens. Because whenever Ashan says Sri Yantra, it is fully manifested within him. He demonstrates it, he shows it, he manifests it. It's not just a phrase. And when some random person somewhere on the internet goes, oh, Sri Yantra, oh, some kind of symbol, I need to Google it. Someone on social media tells him, you need to put this symbol in your wallet so you'll have money. He probably put it there and nothing happened, and that's just nonsense. It's simply nonsense. But it's a completely different matter when a bearer of knowledge, a practicing master, pronounces it and awakens this entire structure. And that's exactly what you respond to. That's what you truly need. How do you know? You just feel it deep down. You simply feel it. That's it. That's really it. It doesn't matter to me what it's called. That's what I want, and that is exactly how it works for everyone.
That's a different state
of feeling.
Could you share what are the most incredible and surprising cases, perhaps, that happened to your students during your career, which you personally witnessed yourself?
Well, looking back at some of the most recent cases I've handled, quite fresh off the press, so to speak, there was a specific instance where a woman reached out and purchased a personal consultation from me about a year and a half ago. During our session, we discovered that she was battling cancer. She was already aware of it, but her life was truly hanging by a very thin thread, and we wondered what could possibly be done. So I sat down and explained to her that cancer often signifies that you have had a major falling out with your own soul, just completely and utterly, that your connection could break at any moment, and that it urgently needs to be restored. We practiced together. I showed her the techniques and explained in general how to move forward, what to do, how to recover, how to start the regeneration process, and how to get into a state where all of this would disappear from her body. I explained all of this. For all these 1.5 years, she practiced. She continued working with me, and over time, when the Practitioners Club was formed, she joined that club and trained using the courses. There were a lot of people, and all of that faded from my memory. Someone was somewhere, so she was just one of them. We traveled to Tibet. It was a mountain pass, high altitude, very difficult, a huge strain on the physical body. For many people, it was very hard to do all of this. There isn't enough air to breathe there. Physically, it feels as if you are a very old, ancient person. It's just hard to be at that altitude. And when we were doing the Kora around Mount Kailash, there was a mountain pass at 5,800 meters, starting from 5,000 meters. You see, at 5,800 meters, it's practically a hanging ascent. You're basically climbing up a rock face. Well, not exactly scrambling, but it's a steep hike, a really steep climb. And naturally, our group got stretched out along the way. Some people were barely hanging on while others were running ahead. I was also somewhat closer to the front. But of course, I wasn't running up that mountain. I was still interested in looking around, taking it in, meditating a bit as I walked. So I was walking along somewhere near the front, but not at the very front. She was always somewhere in my immediate vicinity. In other words, she had enough stamina to always be right there beside me, among the first people. And at some point she says, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Listen, there are so many people in my life right now that, to be honest, I don't remember you. My brain is constantly clearing out relationships with lots of people, otherwise I just go crazy from all of you. There are just too many now." She said, "You know, we had a consultation a year and a half ago, and you gave me some recommendations back then." Something starts to vaguely come back to me, and I say, "Listen, wait a minute, you had a serious illness back then, right?" She says, "It's gone now." And I see this person. She was on the broadcast. She was actually on the other side when the broadcast happened. Now I see this person right next to me. She is among the first, climbing this steep mountain at an altitude of 5,800 meters, and she no longer has that illness. And I ask, "Was it the practices?" She says, "Yes, everything you showed me." That really amazed me, because the temple, the Vidya, the people who practice there, very strong people would come there. Strong-willed, resilient, full of restless energy. I was like that too. I was crazy. I built a house in Altai. I traveled all across the world. I worked hard from a very young age. In other words, I was never sick. I was tough. I was resilient. We sat there practicing these sacred 9-day rituals right there at the Havan, when you chant ancient mantras all night long. It's a very intense and difficult challenge, and there were many strong people there. I had never seen anyone who, thanks to this incredible system, truly raised themselves from the grave. Plain and simple. And this person was now standing in front of me saying, "Here you go, this is the practice, this is the result." Wow. I said, "This is in just a year and a half?" She said, "Well, yes." So we climbed over that pass, then descended, and still had another 40 kilometers to go, and she handled it all absolutely calmly. And she wasn't suffering at all from a weakened body, not at all. And that really gave me a lot of energy and motivation, even more, that what I'm showing actually works for absolutely everyone. Not just for the supercharged ones, the tough ones who can break through walls with their heads, No, this system works for everyone. This video, this is what makes you a master. This is what opens up the world of energy for you. Yes, there were many other remarkable cases. Truly beautiful examples related to relationships, money, success, luck, and getting out of debt traps. All of that happened. And there were a huge number of people, and all these stories that passed through me every time, I was like, cool. Another piece of evidence that everything I show is not just something that works for me, it actually works in general. What I show is something that truly exists and really delivers results. Time and time again, another person would come along and say, listen, these were my very, very, very first steps in learning. There was this young guy from a deeply troubled family, struggling with drugs, heavy smoking, and severe alcohol abuse. It was like from a cornucopia of problems. He was so young, but already completely done for and broken. He was already dying, basically. Somehow he managed to find me through the internet back when I was first starting to get involved in these things. I showed him, I explained things to him, I gave him practices, I gave him this knowledge. And many years later, this same individual moved to a brand new city, bought himself an apartment, got a very successful career, and now lives a completely different life, a truly successful and fulfilling life. But the way he started out, well, honestly, after just a month, you could have already buried him, so to speak. Yes, he's still passionate. Yes, those needs for some kind of thrill are still burning inside him. But now he's a complete person, living a full life with resources, who doesn't burn out, who doesn't destroy himself. This is a person who became completely different. In other words, he basically started a new life without dying. He broke free from all of that. He was one of the very, very first people who also... It was impressive, like, wow, just how much people can change simply by practicing. Just sitting there, observing how the energies move, knowing and understanding how it all works. Like I said, there were a lot of people, and if we keep developing this topic now, well, it looks like we just won't get anywhere. And we won't move on from here.
To put it more clearly, in any case, our entire surrounding reality, our personal health and overall well-being, our physical body, and the various events and experiences that happen to us, they all originally and fundamentally begin at the foundational level of energy.
I would say, at the level of your configuration and consciousness body, everything is initially determined there.
So everything starts in the Yantra, then comes the energy, then the psyche, and after that, the physical body.
No, everything starts in your Yantra. You don't have a Shri Yantra, you have some kind of Yantra, some kind of configuration, and everything else is de-energized. But it's the same thing. If we put it simply, every sperm cell is potentially a huge, healthy chunk of meat with arms, legs, and a head. But it is potentially such a being. For now, it's just a little worm, a tiny tadpole. What we represent at the level of the body and consciousness is potentially a Shri Yantra. For now, you are just some form of life, some kind of Yantra, some kind of structure. It is precisely the technique, the skill, the knowledge of how to awaken your structure to the state of the Shri Yantra. And this is Shri Vidya, this is the tradition, but at that point we are just some tiny specks, some very limited particles, with a very narrow spectrum of perception, frightened, lost, not knowing where to run at all, or from whom to seek salvation, or just a weirdo, really, here. And even other people take advantage of this, those who simply know a little more.
So, Anton, what would you like to say to all the viewers who have watched our interview all the way to the very end?
Everything is in your hands, and no one, under any circumstances, will do anything for you. That's the harsh reality. And if someone does try to create the illusion that they're doing something for you, they're simply going to be parasitizing off of us.
Thank you, Anton. This was a very interesting and valuable interview. Thank you, friends.
Amdei.